Hey guys, tonight we slip beneath a sky streaked with electric blue and black, rain pelting down so fiercely you can taste the ocean before you even see it. The air is thick, salty, restless, promising adventure or disaster with every gust. Thunder hammers the world into a staccato lullaby and your little bed feels more like a leaky lifeboat. Maybe you're in pyjamas, or maybe you're wearing socks so fuzzy they could double as a disguise. But tonight none of that matters, because tonight you're not safe at home. You're tumbling through history, swept into the cold and wild Mediterranean, where women have knives hidden under their silk veils and sailors say prayers to saints who never answer back. If you thought bedtime stories were supposed to be cozy, well, you probably won't survive this one unless you clutch those blankets a little tighter. So before we go any further, if this quiet space makes you feel even a little less alone, you can like the video and subscribe, but only if it feels right to your heart. And hey, I'd love to know where you're listening from. Are you lying awake in a quiet room at 2 AM? Or maybe starting your day in a rainy city, eyes still heavy? Drop your time and place in the comments. Let's remind each other we're not alone out here. Now, dim the lights, let your shoulders relax, and let's begin tonight's slow, strange journey, together, here on Timeless Sleep. The wind catches your breath, and suddenly you're not on your mattress. You're teetering on the prow of a battered ship, waves slamming the hull with a violence that should terrify you, but somehow you feel steadier than you have in years. A woman stands at the helm, back straight, her eyes scanning the night for more than just shoals and storms. She looks nothing like the cartoon pirates on cereal boxes. Her hair, streaked with grey, whips across her face, but her gaze is sharp, fixed on the distant glimmer of lanterns, the coast of Morocco. This is Sayyida al-Hura, last queen of Tetouan, and you're about to discover why men whispered her name in the same breath as curses. They called her pirate, but only because queen was too small a word. In her time, the Mediterranean was a checkerboard of power. Spanish galleons, Portuguese caravels, Berber corsairs, Ottoman gunboats. Ships moved like chess pieces, alliances shifting with the wind, and you, well, you're just trying not to trip over a coil of wet rope as the deck bucks beneath your feet. The crew speaks a half-dozen languages, but their eyes all dart to Sayyida, even when their mouths form prayers. It's not that they trust her exactly, they trust her to survive. Tetouan's lights are faint smears on the horizon, blurred by rain and memory. You hear the city before you see it, the yowl of alley cats, the clang of distant bells, the scrape of wooden wheels on cobblestone. If you squint, the Medina seems to twist and breathe, every shadow a secret, every whisper a bargain. It's not so different from a sleepless night in your own life, except here, nightmares can row out and find you. Sayyida al-Hura was born Lala Aisha bint Ali ibn Rashid al-Alami, the daughter of a nobleman. Her story didn't begin with adventure, it began with terror. As a child, she fled Granada with her family, forced into exile by the Reconquista. It's a historical fact. 1492 is remembered for Columbus, but for hundreds of thousands of Muslims and Jews, it meant dispossession, flight, the sudden knowledge that everything safe can be ripped away overnight. Historians still argue whether the trauma of exile shaped Sayyida's hunger for power, or whether she was always destined to rule from the edge. Exile has a strange way of sharpening the mind. When you've seen your world erased, you learn to read people the way sailors read clouds. You learn not to wait for rescue. The Queen's hands, delicate and strong, grip the wheel with a certainty you wish you had in your own life. She knows, just knows, that survival means never showing fear. The ship's captain is a wiry man with rings in his ears and stories tattooed on his arms, but even he bows his head when Sayyida approaches. You overhear him muttering, half in prayer and half in warning, "Don't ever look her in the eyes after sundown." It's one of those superstitions that sticks, like how people once believed onions could ward off plague. Some say she can curse a man with a glance, others say she's already cursed enough for everyone. There's a joke among the sailors that you find yourself quietly appreciating. On Sayyida's ship, even the barnacles are afraid to let go. The world she rules is layered with threat and promise. Sometimes the Queen's punishments are inventive. More than one thief has found himself locked in the galley with nothing but pickled lemons for company, forced to eat every last one before being allowed to set foot on land again. It's a lesson in sourness and endurance, and oddly it works. You pick your way down the deck, sea spray biting your skin, and eavesdrop on a heated argument in the galley. Apparently one crewman tried to hide a gold coin in a sack of flour, thinking no one would notice. Saida noticed. She always notices. Later, you see the unlucky thief scrubbing the ship's filthy hull with a brush made of his own hair, muttering something about never trusting a pirate queen to overlook even the smallest crime. The sky cracks open with lightning, illuminating Saida's face for a brief startling second. She looks ageless, worn but unbroken, like driftwood polished by decades of storms. Historians debate how much power she truly held. Was she the de facto ruler of Tetouan, or just a puppet for Berber warlords and Ottoman admirals? What no one debates is her legacy. By the early 1500s, she'd made Tetouan a haven for corsairs, a pirate capital where exiles could trade loot and secrets far from the gaze of Christian Europe. Under Saida, Tetouan became a strange kind of sanctuary. You might be tempted to call it lawless, but that's not quite right. The city had laws, just not the kind written down on parchment. If you're bold enough to visit the night markets, you'll find spices piled high beside barrels of gunpowder. You'll find old men selling maps inked on scraps of sheepskin, the routes marked with skulls, question marks, and, occasionally, a doodle of a particularly unpleasant sea monster. One merchant tries to sell you a cursed compass, promising it points only toward hidden treasure. Never mind that it also seems to point directly at his cousin's fish stall. Saida walks the market with you, blending into the shadows. She wears a dagger at her hip, but her true weapon is her tongue. Stories claim she could talk an enemy into surrender, or a lover into betrayal with a single well-chosen phrase. There's a certain beauty to this part of the world. The call to prayer curling through the fog, the warm scent of cumin and honey, the laughter that always sounds a little desperate after dark. The Queen's home is not what you expect. You're led through narrow alleys, past battered doors with symbols scratched into the wood. A Hamza here, a crescent moon there. Finally, you reach a courtyard filled with orange trees and broken fountains. Saida's palace is both fortress and haven. Historians still puzzle over her architectural choices. Why so many hidden rooms? Why the thick slanting walls? Some whisper that she designed the palace for escape. Others say it was built to amplify sound, making even the softest conspiracy impossible to keep secret. You find yourself growing fond of the Queen's oddities. For instance, she never dines at the same table 2 nights in a row. She says it keeps her enemies guessing, but you suspect it's also because the view changes. Sometimes you eat with the scent of blossoms, other times with the sound of caged finches who sing only at dawn. At one midnight meal, Saida offers you a slice of honey-soaked bread and asks if you know how to tell a real friend from a fake one. You hesitate, then admit you don't. She laughs, and the sound is both joyful and sad. A real friend, she says, doesn't ask for a share of the gold, but he'll always take the blame if you get caught. On a particularly restless night, you wander the ramparts and see ships flickering on the horizon, lanterns bobbing like fireflies. Saida stands beside you, her expression distant. She confides that she never sleeps more than 3 hours at a time, not since she was a child. You wonder aloud if she's afraid. She shakes her head. It's not fear, she says. It's anticipation. The world only feels alive when you're waiting for someone to try and take it from you. The Queen's court is a patchwork of outcasts. Former slaves, exiled nobles, Jewish merchants, escaped prisoners. In Tetouan, it doesn't matter who you were, only what you can offer now. There's a certain democracy to piracy, one that appeals to people who've lost everything. It's said that on Saida's ships, even the cook gets a vote when the spoils are divided. Of course, if you cross the Queen, you might wake up to find your boots filled with wet sand or worse, reassigned to the bilge pumps for a month. It's a tough school, but it produces survivors. At a feast in the Great Hall, you listen as sailors tell stories of near escapes and almost deaths. One boasts that he once navigated the Straits of Gibraltar blindfolded, guided only by the smell of fried sardines from a market in Tangier. Another claims he can hear a Spanish cannon being loaded from 3 miles away, although, judging by his hearing loss, it's more likely he just guesses. There's a superstition among the crew that rubbing the ship's anchor before battle brings good luck, but only if you spit on your left shoe first. These rituals are half belief, half insurance policy, and they give the knights a sense of order even when chaos reigns. Historians still debate whether Sayyida al-Hurra ever actually led her own fleets into battle, or if she simply orchestrated things from behind the scenes. What's clear is that no ship sailed from Tetouan without her blessing, and no pirate dared break her laws. The Spanish called her the Pirate Queen, but in Tetouan she was simply al-Hurra, the free woman. It's a title that fits better than any crown. On one moonless night, the Queen calls you to her private chamber. The room is bare except for a map pinned to the wall, covered in strange marks and symbols. She points to a spot off the coast, barely more than a smudge. There, she says, is where the sea hides her real treasures. You're not sure if she means gold or something else. Maybe the real treasure is survival, knowing that you can lose everything and still rise, salt-stung and unbroken. There's a rumour in the city that Sayyida once turned away a suitor by challenging him to a duel of wits. The poor man, so the story goes, left Tetouan with a bruised ego and a very confusing riddle stuck in his head. It's a reminder that in this world, brains matter just as much as brawn. You start to see why her legend lingers in every tavern and market stall. By the time dawn claws its way over the mountains, you realise you've learned something essential about the Queen of Tetouan. She isn't just a pirate or a queen or a survivor. She's a storm, unpredictable, wild and oddly comforting if you know how to ride it out. You feel the pull of sleep tugging at your eyelids, but you're not quite ready to let go. There's something magnetic about the idea of a woman who made her own fate, who stared down kings and conquerors and refused to blink first. As the first light spills over the city's rooftops, you drift back to your own world, heart racing, mindful of seawater and secrets. Maybe you'll dream of ships and storms tonight, or maybe, just maybe, you'll wake up with a little bit of the Queen's courage hidden inside you, a reminder that even in exile, even in darkness, there's always a way forward. You never really sleep after that first night with the Queen. Instead, you drift somewhere between memory and storm, half awake on the restless Mediterranean. Sayyida al-Hurra's world presses close, and you find yourself drawn backward through the tangled streets of Tetouan, searching for the small girl behind the legend, a girl shaped by loss, not yet crowned by fear. You see her first in the narrow alleys of Granada, where fountains burble in shadowed courtyards and women wrap themselves in silks bright as marigolds. Lala Isha bint Ali, as she's still called, is barely more than a child, her hands always clutching at her father's cloak. The sounds of the city are familiar, market sellers shouting, children chasing pigeons, the slow, musical ring of church bells mixed with the distant call to prayer. Yet tonight the city feels uneasy, as if it's holding its breath. Historians still argue whether Sayyida's family knew the true danger that hovered over them in those final days of Al-Andalus. Some say they thought the new Christian rulers would let them stay, as long as they converted or paid the right bribes. Others insist the signs were everywhere, friends vanishing overnight, forbidden books thrown into silent fountains, the sudden rise of soldiers in white tabards at every corner. What's certain is that one evening, without warning, Lala Aisha's world is split apart. You stand in her small bedroom, pressed against the painted wall as shouts echo from the streets. She hears her mother's sobs, the hurried voices of neighbours. "Get your children, take nothing, don't look back." Someone drops a bundle of cinnamon sticks in the rush. The smell lingers in the air, a bittersweet promise that comfort is already behind them. Outside, fires flicker on rooftops. You grip Lala Aisha's hand as she's bundled into a caravan, pressed between brothers and sisters, the family's few treasures hidden beneath their cloaks. The journey out of Granada is the first of many lessons in loss. Favourite toys left behind, a kitten that never makes it to the next village, neighbours vanishing without goodbye. You feel every bruise from the rough wagon wheels, the gnawing ache of a stomach empty for days. You also feel the strange, stubborn heat building inside her, a child's first taste of rage. After months of wandering, the family finds a home in the mountain city of Tetouan. Its blue-washed walls like something conjured from a dream. Yet Exile is not a fairy tale. The new life is hard, and the family must start over. New language, new rules, old suspicions that cling like dust to their heels. You watch Lala Aisha learn to hide her accent, to slip unnoticed through the markets, to memorise the names of every local official who might help or harm them. There are odd superstitions in Tetouan. Women hang bits of coloured thread from their doors to ward off evil. Children trade tales of the jinn, mischievous spirits who steal bread or change the taste of water for no reason except their own amusement. One afternoon, a neighbour swears that the city is watched over by a serpent who lives beneath the well. You watch Lala Aisha listen closely, eyes narrowing. Not in fear, but in calculation. The stories aren't just amusements to her, they're warnings and instructions, ways to survive in a world where everyone is someone else's enemy. Historians debate how much of her childhood is true and how much is legend. Did she really best her brothers in games of chess, predicting their moves before they'd even touched a piece? Did she spend afternoons spying on city elders, memorising the subtle code of glances and gestures that passed for politics? Or are these tales shaped by centuries of imagination, each teller adding a new twist, a sharper shadow? What's certain is this: young Aisha sees too much, learns too fast, and loses her innocence far earlier than most. She comes to understand that even the safest home can become a prison overnight. The world is a shifting, dangerous place, but it's also alive with possibility for those bold enough to seize it. You grow older alongside her. The lessons change. One summer, the family's fortune dwindles, and Aisha learns to trade words as cleverly as her mother trades saffron and dates. She barters for stories in the marketplace, overhearing scraps of conversation, news from across the sea, rumours of Christian ships growing bold, the latest intrigue in far-off fairs. You start to notice how adults treat her, with a curious mix of pity and respect, always a little wary, as if sensing the storm that simmers in her heart. There are jokes among the city's old women that Aisha's too clever for her own good. Once, when caught eavesdropping, she claimed she was chasing a runaway chicken, a story so absurd and detailed that even the sternest neighbour can't help but laugh. The chicken, by the way, was later seen perched on the city wall, gazing out at the horizon as if dreaming of a different life. Night after night you listen to the grown-up stories. Some are ordinary, warnings against pickpockets, reminders not to trust strangers. Others are stranger. There's the tale of the woman who braided her hair with silver coins, daring the spirits to steal her fortune. Or the man who swore he saw a ghostly fleet in the harbour one foggy dawn, only to discover it was just fishing boats and too much cheap wine. One day, you wake to find Tetouan in chaos. The governor's men have arrived, demanding new taxes, searching for traitors who refuse to bow to the new rulers in distant Spain. The family's friends disappear behind locked doors. The market stalls close early. You feel Aisha's anxiety, a physical thing, like a rope tightening around your ribs. Then, in the hush before dawn, her father makes a decision. They will leave Tetouan for good. The journey is dangerous, the roads watched by soldiers and thieves. They travel by night, hiding in olive groves, sharing whispered hopes that they might find peace in Tetouan, a city rumoured to shelter exiles and outlaws alike. You reach Tetouan exhausted, hearts bruised but still beating. The city is nothing like the sunlit courts of Granada. Its walls are scarred by war, its alleys haunted by old debts and older secrets. Yet here, finally, the family finds a kind of uneasy safety. Here, the story changes. Aisha comes of age among pirates and smugglers, rebels and mystics. The city's rulers are always in flux, power shifting with every change in the wind. She learns to make herself useful, translating documents, arranging deals, listening to problems others are too proud to confess. She wears the wrong clothes, speaks the wrong language, but her mind is sharper than any sword. There's a fringe tale that one spring, when she was barely 15, Aisha convinced an entire ship's crew to defect simply by promising them a share in an imaginary treasure. By the time they realised the gold didn't exist, she'd already turned them into loyal allies. Did it really happen? No one can say for sure, but you find yourself wanting it to be true. It's in Tetouan that Aisha becomes Sayyida al-Hura, the Free Lady. The city is a patchwork of languages, religions and ambitions. You watch her move through it with a confidence that surprises everyone, including herself. She learns to make allies of enemies, to turn strangers into friends with a single shared meal or a whispered secret. If someone wrongs her, she never forgets, and she never forgives. You see her, one dusk, standing on the city walls as rain falls in soft rhythmic sheets. She watches the sea, searching for something only she can name. Later, you hear her confide to her mother that the world seems full of locked doors, and she intends to find every key. Historians still argue about what drove her to piracy. Some say it was a thirst for vengeance, a need to punish the Christian kingdoms that cast her family into exile. Others believe it was about power, the chance to make her own fate in a world that denied her any. What's clear is that by her early 20s, Sayyida had become one of the most influential women in the Maghreb. She controlled trade, negotiated alliances, and, according to one French ambassador, could silence a room with a single glance. There are quirks to her leadership. She insists on meeting every new arrival herself, always at night, always over strong bitter coffee. She's said to have a fondness for riddles and never travels without a small silver mirror. Superstitious sailors claim that if the Queen drops her mirror, a storm will follow within 3 days. Oddly enough, the pattern holds more often than not. At 25, Sayyida's life takes another sharp turn. She marries, but not for love. Her husband is a local warlord, powerful but distracted, more interested in hawking than governing. The city's fortunes are in her hands, and she knows it. She builds networks, not just of pirates, but of traders, poets, spies, anyone who might bring her an advantage. There's a story that she once paid a group of street musicians to deliver coded messages in their songs, and for months, her enemies had no idea they were dancing to the Queen's orders. One summer you find her walking the docks at midnight, listening to the creak of ships and the low hum of conspiracies. She's restless. Power is never secure and danger lurks everywhere. You overhear sailors debating whether the Queen can really read minds. How else does she know every betrayal before it happens? Others claim she keeps a book of secrets beneath her pillow, writing in it each night by candlelight. Piracy, in Sayyida's world, isn't just about stealing gold. It's about control, over trade, over information, over fear itself. She's said to have brokered deals with everyone from the Sultan of Morocco to the corsairs of Algiers, and woe to the captain who tries to cheat her. Once, a Portuguese merchant tried to double-cross her on a shipment of silk. The next day, his ship was found mysteriously adrift, the cargo untouched, but every barrel filled with seawater and live eels. No one ever tried the same trick twice. Historians love to debate the meaning of her name. Hurrah means free, but freedom is a slippery thing. Did she truly rule by her own hand, or was she always dancing to the tune of more powerful men? Scholars still disagree. What no one questions is her influence. Sayyida al-Hura made Tetouan the most feared pirate haven on the Moroccan coast. There's a kind of poetry to her story. A girl chased from her home becomes the queen of the outcasts. A child who learned to hide becomes a woman no one can ignore. You stand beside her as dawn breaks, the city slowly waking, pigeons wheeling above the rooftops. She's older now, her gaze harder, but the same fire burns in her eyes. The fire that began in Granada, the night she lost everything and swore never to be powerless again. And you, still half lost between dream and history, begin to understand. Sometimes, the greatest legends are born not from triumph, but from loss. Sometimes a pirate queen is just a girl who refuses to give in. You don't remember falling asleep, but suddenly the city is awake beneath your feet. Tetouan, the outlaw harbour, stretches before you. A labyrinth of sharp-angled alleys, every stone and shadow hiding the bones of an old rebellion or the promise of new mischief. The early sun hits the whitewashed walls and sets them blazing, but most of the city is still in that drowsy, liminal state, where yesterday's secrets linger like mist above the roofs. Tetouan doesn't feel like anywhere else you've ever been, not even the bustling marketplaces of Granada or the half-hidden lanes of Chef Cohen. There's a nervous energy here, a sense that anything can happen, and probably will if you hang around long enough. You smell wood smoke and oranges, the distant tang of salt and fish, and threading through it all the scent of danger. It's a city where you never quite know who's watching you. You join the early crowd pressing through the market gate. If you're waiting for order or predictability, you'll be waiting a long time. Tetouan is a city run by pirates, for pirates, and the law is whatever Sayyida al-Hurra decrees before breakfast. You pass a group of women selling sweets, date-filled pastries, honey still warm from the pan, while a pair of toughs argue over the price of a chicken, their hands never straying far from their knives. The shops are open, but most traders keep one eye on the alley, wary of sudden changes in fortune or authority. A boy shouts the news in 3 languages, mostly invented. The Queen's fleet has returned, gold has been smuggled in by donkey, and for a small fee, he'll show you the exact spot where a Spanish spy was last seen, though the story changes with each telling. There's always a new scheme, always a new arrival with just enough hope or greed to think they might outsmart the city's reigning power. You edge past a tangle of musicians, their music drifting like perfume through the air, part lullaby, part warning. Even the dogs here seem to swagger, tails high, moving with the unearned confidence of those who belong to no one and nothing. Sayyida's palace sits on a rise, its high walls gleaming in the sunlight. To outsiders, it might look imposing or even forbidding, but for those who've lived in exile, it's a promise. Sanctuary for some, fortress against others. The people of Tetouan, at least those who survive more than a week, know this city runs on a system all its own. If you have skills, a sharp tongue, or luck thicker than the Queen's morning coffee, you might carve out a life. But if you cross the wrong person, or worse, cross Sayyida herself, there are consequences. Pirate justice is quick, sometimes cruel, but always memorable. The Queen's word is final, but her sense of humour is legendary in its own sharp way. There's a running joke that if you're brought before her for petty theft, she'll let you choose between a night in the dungeons or an hour cleaning the pigeon coops. Most opt for the birds. At least the pigeons don't hold grudges, or so they claim. You find yourself in the company of the city's fixer, a wiry old woman with a missing front tooth and a laugh like broken pottery. She leads you through back passages and hidden courtyards, each one home to a different shade of rebellion. Here, a group of poets whisper coded messages into cups of tea. There, a circle of traders haggles over bolts of contraband silk, careful never to reveal who's buying for the Queen and who's selling to her enemies. Historians still debate how Sayyida kept such tight control over a city bursting with outlaws. Was it fear, respect, or simply the promise of shared fortune? Some argue she ruled by cunning alliances and relentless surveillance, employing spies who blended seamlessly with the beggars and vendors. Others claim she ruled through charisma alone, her force of will shaping the city as surely as the tides shaped the shore. The truth, as always, is slippery. A little of both, maybe more. There are quirky customs unique to Tetouan. Before any major decision, whether to join a raid or accept a new merchant, The crew gathers in the Queen's garden. Each participant plucks a leaf from the oldest olive tree and tucks it behind their ear. It's supposed to bring clarity and luck, though some say it's really just an excuse to avoid eye contact during the arguments that follow. Occasionally a cat sneaks in and absconds with the leaves, sending everyone scrambling and the meeting dissolving in laughter. You catch a glimpse of Sayyida al-Hurra herself in the heart of the city, flanked by 2 bodyguards whose only visible weapons are their withering stares. She moves through the crowd with the self-assurance of someone who knows every secret passage, every hidden doorway. People bow their heads as she passes, not out of fear, but out of a complicated mix of gratitude and caution. In a city where survival is the only real law, the Queen is both protector and threat. One morning, you're drawn into a gathering at the city's edge. A group of exiled Jewish goldsmiths have set up shop beside the remnants of an old Roman arch. Their work is exquisite. Filigree earrings, bracelets stamped with symbols so old no one remembers their meaning. One of the smiths explains that the Queen welcomes anyone who brings value, no matter their faith or past. "Here," he says, holding up a delicate chain, "we build what the world destroys." There's a quiet pride in his voice, a gratitude for the chance to start again. As you watch, a commotion breaks out nearby. A merchant accuses a young boy of pickpocketing. The crowd tenses, waiting for the Queen's enforcers. Instead, Sayyida herself appears, her expression unreadable. She listens to both sides, asks a few sharp questions, then hands the boy a loaf of bread and sends the merchant away with a warning not to start rumours he can't prove. It's justice, messy, improvised, but somehow fairer than the courts of Christian Spain or the distant sultans of the East. The city changes after sunset. Lanterns bob at every corner, painting shifting constellations across the walls. Pirates gather in hidden taverns, trading stories as often as they trade coin. There's a running tale about a ghost ship that haunts the harbour, its captain a woman with eyes like burning coals. If you listen closely, you'll hear bets placed on whether the Queen will find the Spanish gold hidden beneath the mosque steps, or whether she'll finally discover the identity of the masked singer whose voice has bewitched half the city. One fringe tradition comes alive at night: the midnight market. Officially it doesn't exist, no maps, no signs, yet everyone knows where to find it. You duck down an alley, squeeze through a passage lined with broken mirrors, and suddenly you're there. A riot of colour and noise with goods piled high on every table. Someone offers you a bowl of olives so spicy your eyes water, while another promises a charm that will protect you from the evil eye. For a price, of course. You suspect the real magic is in the negotiation. Every sale is a battle of wits, every purchase a chance to start a rumour or forge a secret alliance. The Queen sometimes attends these markets in disguise, wrapped in an old shawl, her face hidden but her laughter unmistakable. She haggles over fish, tests the weight of stolen silver, and once, legend has it, outsold a notorious swindler at his own game, leaving him so embarrassed he left town before sunrise. Historians still argue whether the real power in Tetouan came from its piracy or from these nightly gatherings. Was the Queen's strength in her fleet, or in her ability to let the city's many factions believe they held the true reins? The debate, like the market, never really ends. You wander the city long after most have gone to bed. A black cat crosses your path, and you hear snatches of song from an open window. On a balcony, an old woman waters her herbs, whispering to them as if they're grandchildren. Below, a group of boys chase each other with wooden swords, pretending to be corsairs and queens. The city's rhythm is constant, thrum, 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 the heartbeat of a place that refuses to sleep. You pause outside a small shrine where sailors pray before setting out to sea. There's a custom. Before a long voyage, each man leaves a pebble at the shrine's base. If he returns, he takes the pebble back. If not, the stones remain, a silent record of those lost to the waves. You watch as Sayyida herself kneels, places a smooth white stone beside the others, and whispers a prayer in a language you don't know. Even the Pirate Queen fears the sea's hunger. In the main square, news arrives. A Spanish ship has been spotted near the coast. The city holds its breath, waiting for Saida's command. She gathers her captains in the candlelit hall, men and women hardened by storms and blood. Plans are drawn, threats weighed, alliances summoned or dismissed with a word. No one dares question her authority. Yet, later, in the quiet after, you find her alone on the ramparts, gazing out at the endless dark water. For all her power, the Queen is still a woman who knows what it is to lose, to long for a home that can never be reclaimed. And you, following in her wake, begin to understand what it means to rule a city built on the edge. Every day in Tetouan is a new gamble, a new set of choices. Protect or punish, welcome or exile. The rules are always changing, and yet the heart of the city stays the same. A sanctuary for those the world has cast aside, a haven for anyone daring or desperate enough to start over. It's late now, or early. The lines blur in this place. The city is quiet except for the distant crash of waves. You lie back beneath a lattice of stars, the stories of Tetouan spinning through your mind. In this outlaw harbour, the past and present dance together, and for a moment you feel weightless, as if you too could slip through the cracks and reinvent yourself on the far edge of the world. There's no real line between night and morning in Tetouan, just a slow, uncertain brightening. A hush before the day fully begins, when you can almost believe the city is peaceful. But tonight, as you follow the silent corridors of Saida al-Hura's palace, there's a pressure in the air that tastes like metal and smoke. The rumours have finally solidified. A Spanish fleet has been sighted closer than comfort, and the Queen's household has been roused before dawn. The palace, normally alive with music and laughter, is now filled with soft-footed urgency. Runners slip in and out of doorways, messengers whisper, guards polish blades in the half-light. You find Saida in the audience hall. No royal robes, just simple black cloth, her hair tied back with a piece of red ribbon. She looks every inch a commander, except for the deep lines around her mouth, the only hint of the sleepless night behind her. She motions you closer. Do you know how to tell when a storm is real? She asks, her tone light but her eyes wary. When even the seagulls disappear. You look out the window. She's right. The sky over the harbour is empty, the usual white birds gone, as if the city itself is holding its breath. Historians still argue whether Saida truly relished these moments of crisis, or whether she simply endured them because she had no other choice. Some chroniclers say she thrived in the chaos of war. Others claim she longed for peace but never dared trust its silence. All you know is that when she turns to give orders, her voice is steady, her words quick and certain. She dispatches riders to warn the city's outskirts and calls her captains to council. The men and women who answer her summons are as varied as the sea itself. Some old and battle-scarred, some young and hungry for glory. One woman with a tattoo of a lion on her arm, another whose left eye is covered by a patch. Each carries a private grudge or hope, but none dare question Saida's authority in this hour. You follow as she leads them through the battle plan, routes mapped in coloured sand, signals agreed upon, each street and alley considered for retreat or ambush. There's a nervous energy in the room, but beneath it runs a current of trust. They may mutter and bargain in private, but when the city's threatened, these pirates become a single organism, their loyalty to the Queen the glue that holds them together. Before dawn, the Queen walks the ramparts. You trail her, the city spread below, still shrouded in a fog that the sun has not yet burned away. At her signal, lanterns are extinguished along the shore. In the shadowy streets, shutters close, children are herded inside. Even the animals sense the tension. A donkey brays, chickens huddle together, a street dog whines at the locked market gate. Saida stops you at the highest tower, where the walls still bear the scars of past sieges. Every stone has a memory, she says quietly, running her fingers along a gouge left by a cannonball years before. And every memory is a warning. She's learned to trust these walls as much as she trusts her own judgment. It's not superstition, just a fact that in a city like this, the stones often know more than the people. There's a kind of grim humour in the Queen's war preparations. She insists the cooks keep making breakfast no matter how close the danger. Nothing sours a siege faster than hungry pirates. There's an old superstition that whoever eats the first olive of the day will be safe from swords. Today everyone eats olives, just in case. By mid-morning the Spanish fleet is visible from the towers. 4 ships, sails swollen with wind, the sun glinting on their gun ports. You sense the mood shift in the city, from fear to defiance. This isn't the first time Tetouan has faced down invaders, and it won't be the last. Saïda returns to the harbour. The ships of her own fleet are small but fast, painted in colours that blend with the sea. The Queen inspects every boat, greeting each crew with a quip or a warning. You hear her joke that if the Spanish think they're hunting pirates, they should try chasing cats in a rainstorm instead. The laughter that follows is nervous, but real. Even in the face of war, the city finds ways to be itself, irreverent, stubborn, sharp-edged. Historians have argued for years about the tactics used in these confrontations. Some say Saïda was a naval genius, using the shallow waters and hidden reefs to her advantage. Others claim she simply got lucky, or that Spanish overconfidence was their undoing. The truth, as ever, seems to be a messy mix of skill and circumstance. You watch as Saïda's ships slip out from the harbour in pairs, sails trimmed close, oars at the ready. The Spanish, expecting a head-on fight, are surprised when the corsairs scatter, darting in and out of hidden coves, drawing the larger ships into dangerous shallows. The Queen's galleys are loaded not just with cannons, but with barrels of flaming oil, nets strung with shards of glass, even a cage or two of squawking chickens. No one ever really explains what those are for, but you hear a rumour that once, a flock of chickens released on a Spanish deck caused enough chaos to delay an entire boarding action. At midday, the fighting begins in earnest. You hear the thunder of cannons, the shouted orders, the clash of swords and the sharp report of muskets. The harbour fills with smoke. At times, it's impossible to see more than a few feet ahead, and the world shrinks to the creak of timbers and the spray of salt in your eyes. Saïda's voice carries over the chaos, cool and commanding, directing her fleet with a precision that seems almost supernatural. You cling to the mainmast as the Queen's flagship manoeuvres between 2 Spanish vessels. There's a tense moment. A cannonball whistles overhead, smashing the railing where you stood seconds before. Men and women scramble across the deck, loading guns, hurling insults, tying off ropes. One pirate, missing 2 fingers, grins at you and says, "Don't worry, the Queen's luck is thicker than Spanish armour." You try to believe him. There's a moment of comic relief when, amid the fighting, a crate of oranges tumbles across the deck, scattering fruit and causing 2 burly pirates to slip and crash into each other. Even Saïda cracks a smile as she steps over the mess, never missing a beat as she shouts new orders. Later you'll remember this, how even in the heat of battle, life in Tetouan clings to its strange, stubborn sense of humour. As the afternoon wanes, the Spanish fleet begins to falter. 2 ships are damaged, one runs aground, its sails billowing uselessly. The Queen's corsairs press their advantage, darting in to seize cargo, free captives, set enemy rigging ablaze. You see a young girl, no older than Saïda was when she fled Granada, toss a bucket of sand onto a flaming deck, then leap overboard to safety, laughter trailing behind her like a flag. Historians still debate the final moments of the battle. Did Saïda personally lead the boarding party that captured the Spanish flagship? Did she negotiate the surrender herself, or leave it to her most trusted captain? Some say she sent a note to the Spanish commander, offering safe passage home in exchange for a cask of the fleet's best wine. Others believe she demanded only one thing, that they never return to Tetouan's waters. The details blur, but the outcome is clear. The Spanish are driven off, their pride wounded more deeply than their hulls. After the battle, the city erupts in celebration. Fires are lit, music spills through the streets, tables groan under the weight of roast lamb and sticky sweet pastries. Children parade with wooden swords. Mothers gather at the harbour to welcome home their loved ones. The Queen, for once, allows herself to relax. She accepts toasts from her captains, laughs at the wild stories that grow more improbable with every retelling. Later, as the revelry fades, you find Saida alone in her private chambers. She sits at a low table, a map of the coast spread before her, eyes tracking every curve and inlet. You ask if she ever grows tired of fighting. She looks up, and for a moment the mask slips. "I'm always tired," she admits, "but I'm more tired of losing." She folds the map, leans back and closes her eyes. For a heartbeat, she looks simply human. A woman burdened by too many responsibilities, too many ghosts. The city too is changed by the battle. There's pride in the streets now, a new boldness. But there is also loss. Several families mourn those who will not return. Saida attends every funeral, standing quietly at the edge of the crowd, her presence a reminder that the cost of freedom is never paid just once. In the days that follow, you witness the Queen at work repairing the city, comforting the wounded, distributing the spoils in a manner both fair and ruthlessly practical. There's a tradition in Tetouan that after a victory, each child receives a coin stamped with the Queen's mark, a small promise that the next generation will remember who protected them. You watch as Saida kneels to hand a coin to a girl with salt-streaked hair. "Remember this," she says. "Remember you're not powerless." The city hums with rumours. Will the Spanish return? Will there be new raids? What will the Queen do next? You hear a story from an old fisherman about the time Saida supposedly disguised herself as a merchant to learn the enemy's plans, fooling even her closest advisors. The fisherman winks, adding, "You never know with her. That's why she always wins." You begin to understand why people follow her, not just out of fear or ambition, but out of respect for someone who survived so much and refuses to break. You recall a saying that drifts through the city. The Queen is the storm, but she is also the shelter. In Tetouan, you learn, the line between enemy and ally is always blurred, but loyalty to Saida runs deeper than the sea. By the time the sun sets, the harbour is quiet again. Ships rock gently in the tide, their sails furled, the water reflecting a sky streaked with crimson and gold. You sit on the ramparts with Saida, watching the city exhale, safe for another night. The Queen doesn't speak, but you sense her mind turning already to the next threat, the next hard choice. Above, the stars wheel silently, indifferent to the struggles below. Yet for now, Tetouan endures, its fate tied to the will of one remarkable woman who faces each dawn with steady eyes, and a heart forged in exile and storm. The storm has passed, but Tetouan never truly rests. With the Spanish threat momentarily beaten back, the city slides into its next rhythm, the slow dance of rebuilding and recalibrating, of counting both its gains and its quiet losses. You follow Saida al-Hurra as she moves through the winding streets, her cloak drawn tight, the faintest edge of fatigue in her step. But her mind is sharper than ever, already thinking 3 moves ahead, already weighing old debts and new opportunities. In the court, a battered wooden table becomes the world's most dangerous stage. Today, there's no feast, just the business of pirates and politicians, deal-making over sour wine and platters of olives, the air heavy with smoke from a dozen different pipes. The Queen's trusted lieutenants take their seats, along with representatives from merchant guilds, former rivals, and even 2 shadowy figures from a notorious Jewish banking family. There's an understanding in Tetouan. If you have something the Queen needs, there's always a seat for you, so long as you mind your tongue. Here, alliances are as fragile as spun sugar, and betrayals as common as salt. You notice, with a little thrill of apprehension, how Saida's gaze lingers a heartbeat longer on those she trusts the least, and yet those are often the ones she jokes with most easily. She never lets her true thoughts slip, but there's always a flicker of amusement when someone thinks they've managed to outwit her. At this table, the only real law is never get comfortable. The Queen has seen too many friends turn foe overnight. It's a table with history. According to legend, it was built from the wood of a Portuguese ship captured in a night raid decades ago. If you look closely, you can still see where sword marks run along the grain. Some say the table brings luck. Others mutter that it's cursed, that anyone who strikes a deal here is doomed to see it unravel in the end. The city's oldest trader claims he once saw the Queen tap twice beneath its surface, summoning a hidden drawer where she keeps her real ledgers written in code. You're not sure if you believe him, but in Tetouan, every object has at least 3 stories. One for the Queen, one for the city, and one that will never be told. Saida listens more than she speaks, letting her enemies reveal themselves in their eagerness. Today, the talk is of ships and silver, a Venetian convoy rumoured to be laden with spices and silks, a shipment of Spanish arms supposedly left unguarded after the recent skirmish. Offers and threats slide across the table like dice. Perhaps we should send an ambassador to the Venetians, someone suggests, with a small gift. The Queen's eyebrow arches just barely. And what gift would you suggest? A dagger or a chest of lemons? There are always rumours about poison at these meetings. Some claim the Queen wears a silver ring lined with crushed foxglove, and that a single handshake from her can bring down the boldest adversary. You can't help but notice that nobody ever drinks from the Queen's own cup except Saida herself. It's a silent rule, and one you resolve to remember. Historians still debate whether Saida was truly ruthless, or simply pragmatic in a world where trust was a liability. Was she always the spider at the centre of the web, or did she sometimes find herself ensnared by her own cleverness? Some say she once lost everything in a single night, only to recover twice as much by dawn. Others insist she never gambled unless she had already stacked the deck. The arguments continue, but one thing is certain. In Saida's Tetouan, every relationship was transactional, every kindness was an investment, and every betrayal had its price. The afternoon grows long, shadows pooling in the corners of the room. The Queen's advisors whisper about an upcoming festival, an opportunity perhaps to let tensions cool and rivalries sleep, if only for a night. Saida smiles at the suggestion but doesn't commit. Festivals are for those who forget the cost of peace, she says. Tonight, we count our coins and our friends. You find yourself wandering the city after the meeting, eyes open for traces of secret dealings. In a narrow lane lined with jasmine, you see a group of children playing a game of pirate and merchant. The Queen in their game, a girl in a tattered red scarf, decrees that any traitor must eat a handful of bitter almonds. A child's version of poison, but a reminder that even the youngest in Tetouan know how thin the line between trust and treachery can be. There are unspoken codes everywhere. At a certain tavern, a lamp left burning in the window means it's safe for outlaws to gather. A handkerchief dropped at the city gate signals that a bribe has been accepted and the guards will look the other way for the next hour. If you listen closely, you'll hear stories of a mysterious woman who always leaves a silver coin and a riddle behind. Tonight, the city feels thick with secrets. In the palace kitchens, the cooks gossip while preparing the Queen's supper. One swears she saw a Portuguese captain meeting with a Berber merchant, their whispers urgent, their faces pale. Another claims the Queen's favourite servant is a Spanish orphan rescued from a wrecked ship, now more loyal than any blood relation. The kitchens are as much a centre of intelligence as the court, and you begin to understand why Saida makes a habit of sampling every dish herself before it leaves the room. At dinner, the Queen's table is smaller, more intimate. She invites only those she needs to watch or win over. The meal is simple: grilled fish, flatbread, oranges split open to reveal their jewelled hearts. The talk is lighter, but you can feel the tension beneath every word. There's a story about a Corsican pirate who sent Saida a box of poisoned figs. The Queen, unruffled, sent it back with a note: "You'll need a better recipe." The next week, the Corsican changed allegiances, joining her fleet. As the night deepens, the Queen retires to a quiet courtyard. You join her there, the air scented with mint and wet earth. For a while, she is silent, watching a spider repair its web in the corner of a fountain. "Trust is like this," she says at last. "Every night you build it again, thread by thread, and every day someone tries to break it. But if you never try, you'll wake up with nothing." Her voice is gentle, but the lesson is clear. You wonder then who Saida truly trusts. Perhaps no one fully, perhaps only herself. Yet despite, or because of, her wariness, she draws people to her, the hopeful and the desperate alike. Even her enemies respect her. There's an old proverb in Tetouan: better to break bread with the queen than to cross her in the street. Historians still puzzle over the queen's greatest alliances. Did she truly have a secret pact with the Ottoman Admiral Barbarossa, sharing information and spoils in exchange for protection? Did she really negotiate with Spanish governors, playing them against one another while building her own network of informants? The evidence is tangled and contradictory, but the effect is undeniable. For years, no foreign power could claim control of Tetouan, and Saida's reach extended far beyond her city walls. The Queen's influence is felt even in the most mundane moments. A visiting merchant from Fez tries to overcharge a local woman for silk. Within minutes, the Queen's guards appear, not to punish, but to gently suggest he reconsider his prices. The merchant wisely complies and the story spreads. In Tetouan, fairness is enforced not by threat, but by quiet reminders that the Queen is always watching. Night brings its own sort of deal-making. In a smoky back room, a game of dice is underway, stakes high and tempers higher. Saida appears at the door, her presence enough to hush the argument. She tosses a single coin onto the table and offers a challenge. Winner takes all, but if you cheat, you'll answer to me. The dice roll, the winner grins, and for a moment the tension dissolves into laughter. You find yourself growing accustomed to the Queen's strange sense of humour, a shield as much as a weapon. At a feast, someone asks whether the Queen fears betrayal. She smiles, raising her glass. Betrayal is inevitable, she replies. The trick is to see it coming before anyone else does. There's a round of nervous laughter, and the conversation shifts to safer topics. The next raid, the harvest, the best way to store olives for winter. But beneath the jokes, the Queen's vigilance never wavers. After dinner, she walks the city's ramparts alone, checking the watchposts, exchanging quiet words with her sentries. She pauses at the old city gate, tracing the names of those lost in the last battle, names carved into the stone by grieving families. For all her iron will, you see the weight of memory on her shoulders. Historians debate whether Saida was ever truly safe, even among her own people. Was her caution the product of experience, or was it paranoia born of loneliness? There are stories of secret passages beneath the palace, escape tunnels known only to the Queen and her most trusted allies. Some say she slept with a dagger beneath her pillow, others that she kept a vial of poison hidden in her jewellery box just in case. You wonder too about the price of power. Saida has built a kingdom out of exiles and renegades, her authority absolute yet fragile. Every alliance is a risk, every feast a potential ambush. Yet she endures, not because she trusts in the goodness of others, but because she understands that betrayal is part of the game. The moon rises, and with it the city's nocturnal economy. Smugglers slide through the harbour, their boats piled high with contraband, silks from Venice, spices from Alexandria, stolen books, even barrels of Spanish wine. The Queen receives her cut from every deal, her reach extending into every shadowed corner. If there's a code among Tetouan's pirates, it's this: loyalty is temporary, but a fair share is forever. You listen as two captains bicker over a shipment gone missing. Saida steps between them, her presence enough to silence the quarrel. She offers a compromise. Each gets a smaller share, but the next haul is doubled. The captains agree, grumbling, but you sense their relief. The Queen's fairness, hard-edged though it may be, keeps the peace. In a world built on suspicion, her reputation is a currency more valuable than gold. Tonight the Queen sits at her table, counting the spoils of both war and diplomacy. She looks tired, yes, but satisfied. Another day survived, another web spun and unbroken. For now. As you watch, she fingers a battered coin, tracing the worn image of a lion stamped long ago. "This was my father's," she murmurs, almost to herself. "He told me, never trust a coin you didn't earn yourself." She slips it back into her pocket, a small ritual, a silent promise. Tetouan settles into uneasy peace, the city's heart beating quietly beneath the watchful eyes of its queen. For Saida, there is no true rest, only the next deal, the next betrayal, the next hard-won alliance. And as you drift towards sleep, you carry with you the lesson she has taught so many. In a world of poison and pearls, trust is rare, but power is in the choosing. The rain has come and gone, scrubbing the city's roofs and alleys, with a clarity that almost feels like forgiveness. Yet even after the downpour, Tetouan never looks washed clean. The secrets are simply pressed deeper into the cracks of the stone. The Queen's business never pauses, and tonight her gaze is turned not just toward the straits, but farther east, past deserts and mountains, all the way to the coast of the Indian Ocean, where tales of other pirate queens are drifting in with the monsoon winds. You find yourself aboard a different vessel, lighter and swifter than anything in Saida's fleet. A dhow, its triangular sail pale against the storm-washed sky. The scent here is new, tamarind and coconut, smoke and rain, carried in warm gusts that feel like the very breath of another world. The ship glides toward the coast of Malabar in southern India, where the ocean is a living thing, as beautiful and dangerous as any queen. Historians still argue about what truly made the Indian Ocean the cradle of so many seafaring empires. Was it the spice trade, drawing fortunes from half the known world? Was it geography, the endless monsoons that made navigation a game of timing and nerve? Or was it simply the courage and cunning of those who sailed here, refusing to bow to distant kings? Whatever the reason, you feel it now. This is a sea ruled as much by women as by men, a place where the tides are wild and the rules are written in shifting sand. Tonight you meet one of the legends who slips between fact and fable, a woman the Portuguese called the Scourge of the Seas, but whom her people know by a gentler name, Unyacha, daughter of the Malabar coast, a warrior whose story is sung at every festival fire. Some claim she was born in a thunderstorm, the monsoon wind screaming so loud that the midwives covered their ears. Others say she learned to fight before she could walk, her first toy a wooden sword carved by her uncle, her first lesson that the world never gives power, it must be seized. You walk the beach beside her, the sand cool under your feet, the sky churning with clouds. Unyacha is younger than Saida, her hair pulled back in a warrior's braid, her sari tucked at the waist. She's slight, but her stance is as fierce as any corsair's. Around her wrist is a thin gold bangle, the kind worn by fisher folk and queens alike. She notices you staring and grins. It's for luck, she says, and for catching knives. You watch as she trains with her companions, men and women both, all armed with urumis, the terrifying whip swords unique to Kerala. Their fighting is a dance, a blur of steel and bare feet, laughter woven through the clang of blade on blade. At first it looks like chaos, but soon you see the pattern. Every move rehearsed, every parry part of a strategy older than the Portuguese, older even than the ancient temples that dot the coast. There's a legend told in Malabar's backwaters that Unyacha once defeated 3 hired assassins with nothing but a cooking pot and a handful of chili powder. You watch her reenact the story for a group of children, her voice rising and falling with comic exaggeration, until the kids are giggling and pretending to duel with sticks. A fisherman nearby shakes his head, muttering, "Never bet against a woman who knows where the chili is kept." Despite the laughter, there's an undercurrent of tension. The Malabar coast is divided into kingdoms, each ruled by its own customs, its own proud lineages. Yet all are threatened by outsiders. First the Portuguese, then the Dutch, all eager for pepper and cinnamon, all ready to burn villages to the ground for a ship's hold full of cloves. The sea is both shield and highway, bringing invaders as easily as it brings fortune. Unyacha's people are Nayars, a caste known for their martial prowess and their stubborn independence. Women here are expected to defend their homes as fiercely as any man. There's a peculiar custom. Before a wedding, a bride is given a small dagger, not just as a symbol, but as a practical gift. No one protects you but yourself, Unyasha says, flipping her own blade in her palm with practiced ease. The Queen of Tetouan would have recognized the look in her eyes, defiance mixed with calculation, the certainty that the world belongs to those who dare to take it. There's a fringe tale, whispered in the bazaars, that Unyasha once turned a pirate raid into a wedding feast by offering the invaders a seat at her own table, then serving them so much arak and spiced fish that, by dawn, they had forgotten their mission and pledged allegiance to her father instead. Historians still puzzle over how much of this is truth and how much is embellishment. Did the women of Malabar really command fleets, or did they simply defend their villages when the men were away? The evidence is as slippery as an eel in monsoon season, yet the stories persist, and as you walk with Unyasha beneath the coconut trees, you can't help but feel that legends often reveal more about a people's heart than any dusty ledger ever could. You join a raid one sultry night, your heart pounding as you creep through the mangroves with Unyasha and her crew. Their target, a Portuguese storehouse rumoured to hold enough pepper to ransom a king. The approach is silent, the plan simple. A distraction at the gate, a quick strike through the back, and then vanish into the darkness before the guards can gather their wits. The moon slides in and out of the clouds as you move, the world shrinking to the press of bodies and the soft thud of bare feet on wet earth. Suddenly, a dog barks. For a moment you freeze, but Unyasha is quicker. She tosses the animal a scrap of dried fish, and it settles with a satisfied grunt. "Always feed the dog," she whispers. "They're the best spies." Inside, the Portuguese are caught off guard, half asleep and clutching their rosaries. The fight is brief and decisive. You see Unyasha slip through the chaos, her movements graceful and deadly. She avoids unnecessary violence, disarming rather than killing when she can. Yet there's no doubt about who commands respect. Her orders are crisp, her eyes everywhere. The crew works with a silent efficiency that would make any corsair proud. By dawn, the storehouse is empty, the pepper redistributed to villages up and down the coast. The crew celebrates with sweet milk and fried bananas, their laughter echoing over the water. Unyasha finds you watching and winks. "There's more to piracy than gold," she says, "but never trust anyone who says they're not interested in gold at all." The spoils are divided with a fairness that surprises you. The youngest crew member receives the same share as the leader, a tradition that keeps everyone loyal and keeps mutiny at bay. There's a running joke that the only thing more dangerous than a Portuguese cannon is an unfair captain. In Malabar, it seems, democracy lives not in the ballot box, but in the hold of a pirate ship. You spend days learning the rhythms of the coast. There's work to be done, nets to mend, sails to patch, gossip to share. The sea is both playground and battlefield, every tide carrying news from distant lands. One day, a ship arrives from the Arabian Gulf, its hold full of dates and rumours. "The Queen of Tetouan has bested the Spanish," the captain announces. The news travels quickly, and you sense a thread connecting these two distant women, each bending the rules of their world to suit their own desires. You hear tales of other pirate queens along the Indian Ocean, some remembered only in fragments, others celebrated in grand festivals. There's Sultana Chan Bibi, who defended the city of Bijapur against the Portuguese, and the nameless women who commanded the all-female rowing crews of the Pearl fleets in the Persian Gulf. Historians argue about the facts, but the truth feels less important than the message. Wherever the sea runs wild, women have always claimed their share of its freedom. There are quirky customs here too. Before every voyage, the crew paints their toenails bright red, a tradition said to confuse the evil spirits that lurk in the water. On nights when the monsoon howls, the women gather to tell stories and braid each other's hair, weaving tiny shells and silver coins into the strands. It's said that each braid carries a wish, and that the sea, fickle as she is, will sometimes grant it. You find yourself changed by your time on these coasts. You begin to understand that piracy here is not just about plunder, it's about defiance, about making a place for yourself in a world that's always been ready to close its doors. You watch as Unyasha sits with her elders, arguing strategies and swapping tales, her laughter cutting through the gloom like sunlight. She's not a queen in the formal sense, but her authority is absolute, her legend secure. One night, as you lie under a thatched roof listening to the rain drumming its old tune, you realise you are not homesick. The sense of exile that marked your journey from Tetouan has been replaced by something else, a feeling of kinship, of shared purpose, of belonging to a wild sisterhood that spans continents and centuries. You remember Saida's words. Every night, you build trust again, thread by thread. Here on the Malabar coast, you see that same web being woven, bright and strong and endlessly resilient. When you finally board a ship bound westward, the whole crew gathers to say farewell. Unyaka presses a shell into your palm. For luck, she says, and you know she means it. As the dhow slips away from the shore, you look back at the figures on the beach, their saris and tunics bright against the dawn. You carry their stories with you, their defiance, their laughter, their unbroken will. And as the ship's prow turns toward new adventures, you realise something essential. Wherever the sea runs wild, there will always be queens willing to risk everything for a chance at freedom. The horizon turns gold and blue as you drift from the Indian Ocean's tangled coast toward the lands where desert wind collides with salt air, and the world's oldest stories have salt-crusted edges. This time, the dhow's wooden deck gives way beneath your feet to hot white sand and distant, shimmering city walls. You blink, and now you're in the labyrinthine port of Cannanore, gateway to the Arabian Sea, a place where legends pile up as easily as driftwood, and every tide seems to wash ashore another rumour of a pirate queen. The city's heart beats to the thump of hammers in the boatyards, to the calls of fishmongers, to the laughter of women who carry both baskets and daggers with equal confidence. This is a place where men's voices may fill the air, but women's decisions move the tides. You feel it at once in the marketplace, a sharpness, a rhythm that has nothing to do with the measured pace of sultans or foreign admirals. Here, things can turn in a breath. A price haggled too hard, a glance held too long, a wind that changes at just the wrong moment. You're ushered through a maze of canopied alleys, where the sun is filtered into golden coins across your skin, and you find yourself in the company of the woman known, at least to her enemies, as the Tigress of Cannanore. Her given name is lost to history, swallowed up by centuries of retellings, but her deeds remain. Some call her a pirate bride, others a warrior chief. What's certain is that she commands loyalty as easily as she commands fear, and that her very presence in a room rearranges its geometry. People lean in, conversations hush, possibilities sharpen. Her hair is wrapped in crimson silk, her arms bare and strong. She welcomes you with a nod, not the least bit surprised to see a stranger in her inner circle. She's used to visitors, to envoys and spies, to traders and would-be assassins. Around her, the women of her household are both retinue and army. Each one carries a curved blade at her hip, a laugh that can turn cruel in an instant, and a secret tucked behind her teeth. There's a wedding in the air, a celebration as full of tension as it is of joy. The Tigress is not the bride, not exactly. She is the orchestrator, the one who determines which alliances will bloom and which will be cut short. You learn that among the fisherfolk of the Malabar and Arabian coasts, marriage is as much a contract of survival as it is a matter of the heart. Families trade sons and daughters, not just for dowry, but for strength, for safe passage, for fresh water or timber when the monsoons fail. Historians still debate whether this pirate queen ever truly loved the husband she wed, or if the match was simply another manoeuvre in a life of constant calculation. Some claim she chose him because he could navigate by the stars, others say she picked him for the sharpness of his dagger. There's even a song, sung half in jest, about the bride who demanded a fleet instead of a necklace, and got both. The facts blur in the telling, but the result is undeniable. The Tigress became not just a wife, but a warlord in her own right, feared and obeyed by men twice her size. You attend the wedding feast. seated cross-legged beneath woven lanterns, while dancers spin and musicians pluck out raucous, twisting melodies. The Queen sits at the head of the gathering, her eyes ever watchful. The food is hot enough to make your eyes water, the arak strong enough to erase memory. But the real currency here is information. Women drift between the tables, trading gossip in coded whispers. You catch snatches of intrigue, rumours of a Portuguese fort being built just up the coast, a new tax imposed on the pepper harvest, a sighting of a red-sailed corsair near the islands. As the evening wears on, the Queen draws you aside. "You see those two fighting over a slice of fish," she says, gesturing to a pair of young men in a mock wrestling match. "They'll be brothers-in-law by morning and rivals by sunset." She laughs, the sound low and dangerous. That's what it is to rule here. Always a new alliance to forge, always another to watch. There's a superstition among her people. If a marriage starts with a quarrel, the family will prosper. You suspect that most marriages here begin with at least 3 arguments before the second course. In the days that follow, you accompany the Queen on her rounds. She inspects the docks, negotiates with shipwrights, listens to disputes over fishing rights and river crossings. There's a ritual before every journey, a cup of salted milk passed from hand to hand, a promise that no one will betray the crew while it lasts. She tells you that salt is sacred here, a reminder that every fortune is built on what can be gathered from the ocean, and that betrayal is punished by being forced to drink an entire bowl of brine. "No one's ever done it twice," she remarks with a crooked smile. At night, the household transforms, the women train by torchlight, practicing with swords and staves, their movements precise and unhurried. The Queen herself leads them, her form graceful and unyielding, her commands crisp. You notice that while most of the crew is composed of local fisherfolk, there are also outcasts from distant lands, runaway slaves, women who fled bad marriages, even a former Portuguese nun who now boasts a string of stolen pearls and a fearsome reputation. Each has her own story, her own reasons for taking up the blade. The Queen knows all their secrets and keeps them safe, but not too safe. "We're not here to hide from the world," she says, "but to make it notice us." You witness a peculiar ritual, a kind of contest held on the new moon. The women compete to see who can catch the slipperiest fish with bare hands, a test of skill and patience. The prize is not gold, but the right to sit at the Queen's left hand for the next month, a position of honour and sometimes peril. There's laughter and teasing and the odd sly bet, but you can see how seriously everyone takes the competition. Power here is never permanent. It must be claimed, and then claimed again. Historians still puzzle over the structure of these female-dominated crews. Was their authority truly respected, or merely tolerated in desperate times? Did men ever challenge them, and what became of those who did? In local folklore, the answer is always the same. The ocean has room for only one captain, and sometimes the waves themselves choose her. What's clear is that under the Tigress's rule, the fleet thrived, raiding Portuguese convoys, smuggling pepper and sandalwood, ferrying news and fugitives from one hidden cove to another. There are jokes among the crew about the best way to outsmart the foreign invaders. One woman claims that painting a pig's face on the hull of your ship will keep Portuguese sailors away. Another says that spreading chili powder on the deck will make boarding barefoot impossible. The Queen herself tells a story about disguising her fleet with garlands of jasmine and banana leaves, fooling a Dutch captain into thinking he'd stumbled upon a wedding procession rather than a pirate ambush. It's all about misdirection, she says. If they're laughing, they're not watching your hands. Trade too is a weapon. The Queen oversees deals with merchants from Arabia, Africa, even distant China. The markets of Cannanore hum with life, ivory and teak, indigo and gold, bundles of cinnamon and jars of ghee. At the heart of it all sits the Queen, her fingers drumming out a rhythm known only to her eyes missing nothing. She negotiates with a smile, but woe to the trader who mistakes courtesy for weakness. There's a saying among the local merchants, If the Queen offers you pepper, check for scorpions in the jar. One afternoon, as monsoon clouds gather, the Queen invites you to watch a ceremony on the shore. The women launch a new ship, scattering flower petals over the bow and daubing the hull with turmeric for luck. Children paddle in the surf, shouting warnings to invisible sharks, while the elders sing songs older than memory. It's an act of defiance as much as of celebration, a reminder that every new beginning is born in the shadow of risk. The monsoon breaks in the night, drenching the city, flattening the waves. The Queen's household gathers close, telling stories by lamplight, mending nets and sharpening blades. You listen to the tales of narrow escapes, of fortunes won and lost, of the time the Queen's crew smuggled a Sufi poet out of a Portuguese prison, disguised as a fisherman's wife. There are debates too. Which route is safest in storm season? How to keep the crew loyal? Whether it's better to bribe or blackmail a corrupt official? The arguments are lively, sometimes fierce, but always tinged with a sense of shared purpose. Historians debate the fate of the Tigress of Cannanore. Some say she died in battle, fighting off a Portuguese boarding party with a torch in one hand and a cutlass in the other. Others claim she simply disappeared one moonless night, her ship vanishing into legend, her story carried only in the songs of the fisherfolk. There are even those who insist she faked her death, living out her days in disguise as a healer or a wandering merchant, always close to the sea. As dawn approaches, the rain lifts. The city wakes, the air clear and sharp. The Queen stands at the harbour's edge, watching as her fleet sets sail. You sense the weight of her choices, the price of her power. She rules not by birthright or law, but by the trust she's earned and the risks she's dared to take. You leave Cannanore changed. In the Queen's world, power is a dance, equal parts beauty and threat, humour and steel. You remember the look in her eyes as she surveyed her crew, a mix of pride, vigilance and something softer, a hope that those who follow will be braver than those who came before. You board a small trading ship as the city falls behind, the sun rising over a sea that never tells the same story twice. The wind fills the sail, carrying you westward once more. The legends of the Tigress drift with you, woven into the memory of salt and monsoon, a reminder that every wave hides another queen, and every shore another beginning. Salt in your hair, sun on your arms, and the rhythm of strange languages drifting across the deck. You're not sure when you last stood on solid ground, but by now you hardly mind. Each harbour brings new faces, and every ship carries its own code of survival. As the coast of Arabia fades behind you, the winds steer you toward the next hidden stronghold. This time, to a rocky island in the shadow of distant mountains, where the sea is thick with stories and the moon seems to shine a little brighter for those who live outside the law. You arrive at dusk. The anchorage is already crowded. Battered galleys, nimble dhows, broad-bottomed trade ships all clustered together, sails furled, hulls scarred by battles and barnacles. Lanterns flicker above the water, bobbing like fireflies. This is no ordinary port. It's a temporary refuge, built by outlaws, maintained by bargains, and governed by a code stricter in its way than any king's decree. Here, under the open sky, you will learn about the secret heart of every pirate fleet, the Sisterhood, the rules that bind it, and the penalties that keep it strong. The first thing you notice is the music. It isn't just from the taverns, though those are raucous enough. Drums, flutes, and laughter spilling out into the darkness. No, this music comes from everywhere. The ring of hammers on ships' hulls, the rhythmic thud of rope on wood, the overlapping songs of a dozen different lands. Each crew brings its own anthem, its own favourite joke, its own bitter memory of betrayal or triumph. And above it all you hear the murmured oaths, promises, warnings, the kind of words that mean everything in a place like this. Tonight is a rare gathering, the captain's moot, called whenever new rules must be debated, old wrongs addressed, or alliances hammered out. You slip in among the crowd, men and women both, though the loudest voices tonight belong to women with scars on their faces and feathers in their hair. They sit in a rough circle, passing a battered silver cup from hand to hand. To speak, you must drink first, a sip of strong, burning arrack that strips away fear and, so they say, any lingering intention to lie. Sayyida al-Hurra is there, her black eyes catching the lantern light. So is a weathered woman from Malabar, and a half-dozen others whose names are sung by sailors from Africa to the Levant. These are the pirate queens, or, more precisely, the leaders of the Sisterhood, the web of alliances and rivalries that has held this shadow empire together through years of war and peace. A new captain stands to speak, her accent thick with the sound of the Nile. She proposes a rule: no ship shall leave the anchorage without a full share of spoils for every crew member, regardless of rank or past. There's a moment of silence, then a wave of debate. Some argue for the old ways, for merit and tradition, while others insist that fairness is the only hope against betrayal. It's a messy, passionate argument, and you realise something. For all the talk of freedom, pirates are obsessed with order. The codes they write in the smoky air matter just as much as any king's charter. Historians still argue about the real structure of pirate crews. Were these codes truly binding, or just convenient myths? Did women command with the same authority as men, or were they always forced to prove themselves doubly? The evidence is contradictory, but tonight you see the reality for yourself. Authority here is earned in the storm, at the oar, in the hard moments when gold and trust are both in short supply. The moot ends with a vote, each captain marking a shell and dropping it into a carved wooden bowl. The majority agrees, equal shares for all, enforced by exile for any captain caught cheating. There's a ritual after, almost comic in its simplicity. The captains stand in a line and spit into the sea, a show of unity and a warning to the gods, and perhaps to any lurking spies. You wander the island's narrow paths, stumbling on smaller gatherings, crews playing dice by firelight, knots of women swapping tales of close escapes and unlikely fortunes. A pair of grizzled pirates bicker over the proper recipe for garlic soup, while a group of girls practices knot tying with a ferocity usually reserved for sword play. At one table, a woman with a missing ear spins a story about the time she smuggled a message to a besieged city by sewing it into the hem of her dress, surviving a search by sheer nerve and a perfectly executed sneeze. There's laughter, of course, but there are also rules. Every ship is required to post its own code near the helm, how spoils are to be divided, who makes decisions in battle, what punishments await thieves or mutineers. These rules are enforced not by threat of death, but by the constant, unyielding pressure of group judgment. Shame is a powerful weapon. One fringe punishment for breaking the code is the silent shift, a week in which no one on board will speak to the offender except for essential commands. Most pirates, you learn, can weather a beating, but not the cold shoulder of their own shipmates. The codes themselves are strange, poetic documents, written in a mix of languages, filled with proverbs and warnings. No woman shall be denied a share for her courage. No quarrel over love shall be settled with steel, but with a race around the island. Whoever cheats at dice will row alone at the next tide. These laws are half jest, half deadly serious, and you sense that the very survival of the fleet depends on their observance. Sayyida al-Hurra, respected by all, is the informal keeper of the island's central code. She's asked to resolve disputes, to arbitrate between rival captains, to decide whether a ship accused of cowardice will be allowed to return. You watch her weigh the evidence in a case involving two sisters, one accused of hiding gold after a failed raid. The Queen listens to both sides, then proposes a compromise. The gold will be divided, but the guilty party must spend the next month cooking for the entire fleet. The sisters glare, then grin. The solution is just, if not entirely painless. Historians still puzzle over the peculiar punishments favoured by pirate crews. Did they really maroon traitors on uninhabited islands, or is that just a tale for nervous children? Was it more common to shave the head of a thief, or to force her to row the length of the anchorage in a leaky boat? You hear stories of both, and more. One ship supposedly forced its laziest member to recite every code in reverse, while another crew painted the face of a mutineer with squid ink and made her beg forgiveness at the next moot. Beyond rules and rituals, you see the bonds that hold this sisterhood together. Women here are fiercely loyal to one another, bound by more than just gold. There are secret handshakes, coded signals, even a night each month reserved for what they call the telling of truths. On that night, every crew member must confess a mistake, a regret, or a hope for the future. Some are silly. I wish for shoes that don't leak, while others cut deeper. I wish I could go home, just once, without looking over my shoulder. I wish my mother could see what I've built. The laughter that follows is never cruel, always edged with understanding. There are lighter traditions too. Each year the Sisterhood holds a storm festival, celebrating survival and luck. The women paint their faces with ash and ochre, dance around bonfires, and tell the wildest lies they can invent. Stories of buried treasure, of ghost ships, of romance and revenge. The best liar is crowned queen for a day, her only responsibility to invent 3 new rules for the festival, which are then promptly ignored. You spend a long night listening to stories. One woman boasts of having convinced a French admiral that her ship was cursed, causing him to pay for her to leave his waters. Another claims to have survived a duel by distracting her opponent with a fake love letter. There's a shared pride here in cunning and mischief, a sense that outwitting the enemy is at least as important as fighting him. Still, the mood can shift in an instant. At the edge of a fire, you witness an argument turn dangerous, a dispute over a stolen knife. Voices rise, fists clench. Before violence can erupt, the crew's eldest woman stands and begins to recite the code, word by word, her voice cutting through the noise. The quarrel fades, replaced by embarrassed silence. Order is restored, not by force, but by the quiet power of tradition. Historians still debate how much freedom these women truly had. Did the codes really protect them from violence, or were they still at the mercy of the strongest or cleverest among them? The scholarly answer is always cautious, but tonight, among the Sisterhood, you see real solidarity. Imperfect, yes, but stronger than the threats that swirl outside the safe harbour. As dawn approaches, you join the morning rituals. Salt water thrown over the bow for luck, a bowl of rice shared in silence, a moment of prayer or meditation, each crew honouring their own gods, or none at all. You watch Sayyida al-Hurra move among her people, a calm centre in the swirl of motion. She pauses to check a wounded sailor's stitches, laughs with a girl mending a torn sail, exchanges coded glances with a rival captain. Her authority is unquestioned, yet never absolute. She listens as much as she commands. Before you depart, the women gather for a final ceremony. Each writes a wish or warning on a scrap of parchment and tosses it into the sea. You add your own. May the rules hold, even when the storms come. The papers drift away, dissolving into the waves, their secrets kept by the ocean. You board your ship at last, the island fading into the dawn. As the sails fill, you feel the weight of the Sisterhood's code, a fragile, vital web, spun from courage and laughter, tradition and change. It's not perfect, but it endures, just as the women who made it endure. And as you glide toward the next horizon, you carry with you the knowledge that even in a world built on risk and rebellion, there is always room for trust, for friendship, and for a law that answers not to kings, but to those who choose to belong. Sea mist clings to your skin as your ship presses eastward, deeper into waters once mapped only by rumour. For days the wind carries you past islands, where the palm trees lean at impossible angles, and the stars feel almost close enough to touch. This time, your destination is a place whispered about in every port, a name that inspires awe, envy, and sometimes trembling. The China Seas, domain of the greatest pirate fleet the world has ever known, a realm where the Empress is not just a legend, but a woman whose shadow stretches over 1,000 sails. It's not the world you expect. Instead of battered hideouts or rough camps, you approach a floating city. Hundreds of ships lashed together, decks crowded with people, smoke rising from tiny stoves, sails and banners snapping overhead. This is Zheng Yisao's kingdom, and even the wind seems to pause in respect. The fleet is so vast that it seems to blur the line between ocean and land. Some call it the Red Flag Fleet, others just call it home. You cross into the heart of this floating empire on a skiff rowed by a wiry woman with the boldest earrings you've ever seen. Keep your eyes open, she tells you, grinning. You might see a dragon, or you might become lunch for a duck. You smile, but she isn't joking. The fleet's discipline is as strict as any emperor's, and you soon realise that survival here depends not just on courage, but on an ability to read the shifting tides of loyalty and fear. Historians still argue over how Zheng Yisao, known to the West as Qing Xie, rose to such power. Was it cunning, luck, her famous marriage to a pirate lord, or some rare alchemy of all three? What's certain is that she inherited her husband's command and transformed a loose confederation of sea bandits into a force that rivaled nations. The Red Flag Fleet included women, men, and children. Its reach extended from the Pearl River Delta to the farthest corners of the South China Sea, and at its helm stood a woman who never lost a battle she chose to fight. You're welcomed aboard the flagship by a guard whose armour is patched with silk, and who carries herself with the confidence of someone who has survived a dozen storms. She introduces you to the Empress's court. Captains from every region, advisors who manage fleets within fleets, a pair of twins famous for their skill at both sailing and trickery. Here, even the cooks and carpenters seem to wield authority. Every job is important, every member essential. The Empress herself is not what you expect. She's neither regal nor cold. Rather, she radiates a calm watchfulness, her every movement purposeful. Her hair is bound high, threaded with coins and bits of jade, and her clothes are practical, chosen for work, not display. She speaks softly, but the silence that follows her words is electric. You attend a council meeting, a tightly controlled affair, more business than bluster. Reports come in from outriders, sightings of Qing warships, news of an incoming typhoon, rumours that a rival admiral may be plotting to defect. The Empress listens, nods, then gives her orders with a clarity that makes you understand why even her enemies respect her. No waste, she says, no unnecessary risk, no mercy for traitors. It's here that you learn about the code of the fleet, a set of laws stricter than any you've heard on your journey. Spoils are divided equally, theft is punished harshly, no woman or child may be harmed on pain of death. Captains are expected to be both ruthless and fair, and the chain of command is enforced with a rigour more often found in royal courts than among pirates. One quirky tradition stands out. If a ship's captain loses more than 3 battles in a year, the crew has the right to vote for a new leader. It's democracy, but with a razor's edge. Some nights, when the moon is bright, the Empress gathers her most trusted captains for private strategy sessions. They sit cross-legged on the deck, maps spread before them, arguing over routes and supplies, debating whether to strike or retreat. You're allowed to observe, quietly, on the periphery. You watch the way she listens, how she rewards cleverness but will not tolerate arrogance. There's a joke among the fleet that the only thing more dangerous than crossing the Empress is boring her. Yet for all her fearsome reputation, there are small glimpses of warmth. On festival days, the Empress joins the crew for simple games, rope pulls, singing contests, the telling of tall tales. She laughs at a well-timed joke, prizes wit, and, on more than one occasion, pardons a minor offence if the story explaining it is good enough. The fleet is a family of sorts, one held together by strict rules, but also by a shared sense of belonging that stretches across hundreds of decks. Historians still puzzle over how Zheng Yisao held such a vast empire together. Was it her legal mind, her diplomatic skill, or simply her ability to inspire terror? Some scholars argue that the fleet's real power came from its code, which protected the vulnerable and offered every member a stake in its survival. Others say it was the Empress's talent for turning enemies into allies. She is said to have recruited defeated rivals rather than destroying them, granting them command of their own ships if they proved loyal. Still others claim her greatest weapon was her capacity for mercy, wielded with a precision that made it all the more effective. You witness a trial, an event both theatrical and deadly serious. A captain stands accused of hoarding food during a recent shortage. The crew presents evidence, the accused pleads her case, and the Empress listens, asking sharp questions but allowing no interruptions. When the verdict is reached, guilty, the punishment is immediate but measured. Demotion, a share of her personal gold distributed to the hungry, and a public warning that the next offence will mean exile. There's relief among the onlookers. Justice is done, and the fleet's unity holds. There's a strange pride here too. Even in the cramped quarters below deck, the fleet feels rich, not in jewels, but in laughter and purpose. You eat salted fish and pickled greens beside women who can steer a junk through reefs at midnight, men who've memorised every shoal from Macau to Hainan. Children run wild, but everyone watches out for them. One of the Empress's harshest laws forbids anyone from frightening a child, a rule born, some say, from her own early hardships. A night falls when you're caught in a typhoon, the entire fleet lashed together, everyone working in near silence. The Empress is everywhere at once, helping secure lines, urging patience, and once pausing to sing a haunting tune that carries through the storm and calms the youngest children. By morning the sky clears, and the fleet emerges battered but unbroken, the laughter returning almost as soon as the sun rises. You hear tales of the fleet's glory days, how it defeated both the Portuguese and the Qing navy, how it extorted protection money from merchant princes and local officials, how its blockades could starve a city or bring prosperity, depending on where the Empress turned her favour. There are rumours too that she kept a book of secrets, notes on every powerful family along the coast, every bribe and bargain, every hidden inlet. The reality is both less and more than the legend. She was not invincible, but she was always prepared. Historians debate her end. Did Zheng Yisao truly retire in peace, outliving the empire she built? Or did she simply vanish, like so many before her, into the grey mists of myth? Some say she lived out her years as a wealthy widow, running a gambling house in Guangzhou. Others insist she became a secret advisor to imperial officials, still playing her old game, but from behind a new mask. Before you leave, you are invited to a festival, a riot of colour, noise, and life. There are dragon boats racing, banners flapping, firecrackers echoing into the dusk. The Empress stands at the prow of her flagship, raising a cup to her people. No ocean is too wide, no wind too wild, she calls. As long as we are together, there is nothing we cannot survive. The fleet erupts in cheers, the sound rolling across the water like thunder. As you drift away on your own small boat, the red flag fleet glows behind you, a testament to what women can build when they refuse to accept the limits the world sets for them. You feel the strength of the code, the warmth of the Sisterhood, the sharpness of the Empress's gaze, and as you sail on, you wonder what seas you might yet cross, what legends you might leave in your own wake. The memory of Zheng Yisao's floating city lingers like a shimmer on the water long after you leave the China seas behind. As your small vessel rides the restless swells westward, the horizon grows thick with haze, a boundary between the familiar and the secret. It is in this uncertain space, neither fully sea nor wholly land, that pirate queens have always found their strength. You sense it. Beneath every wave, under every crag of darkened rock, lies another hidden world. Tonight, you will learn how these women turned secrecy itself into empire, how the sea's shadows became their gold. You come ashore on a crescent-shaped island battered by wind and rain, ringed with treacherous reefs and caves that disappear at high tide. From the cliffs above, you spot the remnants of an old fort. Stone walls half swallowed by vines, watchtowers now home to seabirds. Locals say it was built by an exiled queen, its passages dug by hand in the years after her flight from a jealous king. Whether this is fact or fancy, the place feels alive with memory. Every footstep echoes with secrets, every stone still warm with the promise of rebellion. You are welcome not with fanfare, but with the silence of those who know danger is always close. The inhabitants are descendants of outlaws, smugglers, escaped servants, runaways from every continent. The women move with assurance, and the children too carry knives at their belts, a sign of both self-reliance and trust in their own. You join them in the twilight, ducking through a tangle of brush to a low archway that opens into the heart of the island. A honeycomb of tunnels and vaults, cool and dry even as the storms howl outside. Historians still debate whether these underground fortresses were common or exceptional. Some claim every major pirate fleet kept a network of hidden caches, stockpiles of gunpowder, gold, and sweet-smelling spices that could be whisked away on a moment's notice. Others insist such tales are the invention of storytellers eager to make the pirates seem larger than life. But as you wander the tunnels, tracing your fingers along ancient murals of ships and storms, you feel the certainty that something powerful happened here, something built to endure. You join a gathering in the largest vault, a chamber lit by flickering lamps and ringed by rows of chests, some open to reveal their bounty, others locked and sealed with wax. This is the Queen's Council, a select circle trusted with the knowledge of every secret passage, every safe house, every trade route running beneath the reach of kings and sultans. At the centre sits an older woman, her hair streaked with grey, her hands covered in the delicate scars of a life spent carving freedom from stone. She greets you with a slow smile, the kind that weighs and measures before it welcomes. She invites you to watch as her captains map out the coming week's movements. No detail is left to chance. The tides are charted with the precision of astronomers. False trails are plotted for enemy spies. Every shipment is cloaked in misdirection. The air is thick with the smell of beeswax and ink. There's gold in every shadow, the Queen says, if you know where to look. You realise then that her real power is not just in strength of arms, but in the mastery of secrets. How to keep them, how to trade them, how to bury them so deep that even the sharpest eyes see only what they're meant to see. There are quirks to this hidden empire. Before any raid, the crew must walk the length of the main tunnel in silence, touching 3 painted stones said to bring luck, clarity, and the quick return of those who stray too far. There's a story of a woman who forgot the ritual, only to fall into a pit trap laid by her own allies. Punishment for breaking the code. You smile to yourself at the sly humour of pirates. Even the rules about rules come with their own risks. Outside, the world is less forgiving. Rumours swirl of a new governor on the mainland, eager to impress his royal masters with tales of pirate blood. The Queen's spies bring nightly reports. Ships searching for hidden coves, men with dogs tracking the faintest footprints on the sand. Yet for every move against them, the pirates have a dozen ways to slip the noose. A cave entrance is collapsed and replaced by another. A false beacon is lit to draw the enemy into the shallows. A whispered bribe finds its way to a hungry customs officer. You begin to understand the brilliance behind the chaos. The Queen's empire is invisible by design. Historians argue about the economic impact of these pirate enclaves. Did they destabilise kingdoms, or simply siphon off what the powerful could afford to lose? Some say entire cities rose and fell on the gold that passed through these secret networks. Wealth redistributed not by taxes or conquest, but by quiet hands in the night. You listen as an elder explains how the island's fortunes were built. We take a little from everyone who thinks they cannot be touched. Then we share it with everyone who is told they cannot survive. Tonight, a new shipment arrives. Crates floated in under cover of darkness, rowed ashore by women who move with the precision of dancers. Inside you find more than gold. Bolts of silk stamped with forbidden colours, books banned by distant empires, medicines rare enough to start a war. The Queen oversees the unpacking, her eyes missing nothing. We trade in hope, she says, as much as in silver. If you only ever steal money, you will die a pauper, but if you steal the means to shape a future, you'll never be poor. There's a story shared over supper, the firelight painting everyone's faces in golden shadow. Years ago, a Spanish noblewoman fleeing a forced marriage found refuge on the island. She arrived with nothing but a torn dress and a single emerald hidden in her shoe. Within a year, she was captain of her own crew, her fortunes restored not by luck, but by the careful web of support that only a community of outcasts could offer. You realise, listening to the laughter and the clinking of spoons, that this is the real wealth of the hidden fortresses, a promise of safety, a place where every exile can remake herself. The council discusses more than raids and riches. There is talk of alliances with nearby fishing villages, of the need to keep local farmers on their side. No pirate survives without a friend on land, one captain says, her voice low, and every friend needs to be repaid twice over. This network of obligation and gratitude forms the backbone of the Queen's empire, stronger than walls or swords. There's a peculiar tradition after every successful venture. A portion of the spoils is buried beneath a new planted tree, a living reminder that fortune, like the tides, comes and goes. You help plant a sapling yourself, feeling the soft earth, the weight of gold pressed into your palm before you cover it over. The Queen blesses the tree with a handful of water and a whispered wish. Never the same words twice. Always a promise that what is hidden can one day blossom. Night falls, and with it, a different kind of energy fills the tunnels. The younger crew members play games, riddles, arm wrestling, a peculiar contest involving balancing coins on one's elbow and catching them before they fall. The laughter echoes through the stone, but the guards remain at their posts. No secret is ever left completely unguarded. You are shown the oldest vault, its entrance sealed by a carved door. Inside, on rows of wooden shelves, sit the true treasures of the pirate queens. Old letters, maps drawn on animal skin, codes and ciphers used to outwit enemy fleets. There's even a book, its pages brittle, but its script still clear. A record of every woman who ever swore the oath of the Sisterhood, from Sayyida al-Hurra to Zheng Yisao and beyond. Each name is a story, each signature a rebellion. Historians debate whether these secret records ever left their hiding places, or if they were destroyed in times of danger. Some believe a few still exist, passed down in families who remember the old alliances. Others say the last queen facing defeat consigned them all to the fire, trusting only memory and song to keep the stories alive. You feel the presence of both, the hard reality of danger and the softer persistence of legend. You sleep in a low-roofed chamber, safe behind a dozen locked doors and the knowledge that you are watched over by women who have made trust itself into a kind of wealth. The sea, just beyond the walls, hisses and murmurs, as if reciting the names of all who have ever vanished into its depths. At dawn, you climb to the fort's highest point and watch as boats slip away from the island, loaded not just with gold and silk, but with news, with promises, with the hope of return. The Queen stands beside you, her face set against the wind. Every empire ends, she says, but a secret is a kind of immortality. You leave the island changed. The hidden empires of the pirate queens are not just about plunder or power, they are about the ability to endure, to adapt, to thrive in the margins where others see only emptiness. You carry with you the taste of salt, the warmth of firelight, and the unshakable sense that as long as there are those willing to trust each other in the shadows, there will always be hidden gold beneath the waves. And as you set out for the next shore, you realise the real treasure was never just in the chests or the coins, but in the bonds that turn outlaws into a nation of their own. A hush has fallen over the secret stronghold as you prepare for what comes next. Outside, the dawn sky is a quilt of greys and silver, and gulls swoop low over the surf, shrieking their ancient warnings. The Queen's Council has finished its business for the night, but the atmosphere inside the tunnels is restless. Everyone knows that the next venture will be riskier than most. The target is a governor's estate, perched on a cliff above the sea, a house bright with lanterns, well guarded but rumoured to hold a prize no pirate queen could ignore. The governor's daughter, herself an unwilling pawn in a chess game of politics and power. The plan is both daring and simple. By the next full moon, the estate will be hosting a lavish celebration. The governor, newly appointed by a distant king, is eager to show off his power and wealth to the local elite. He has brought in musicians and dancers from across the region, filled his cellars with imported wine, and posted extra guards at every gate. Yet in all his caution, he has overlooked the simplest danger. He thinks of pirates only as shadows on the water, not as guests at his own table. You're chosen to join the infiltration team disguised as a servant. The Pirate Queen's instructions are clear. Trust your wits, not your sword. If anything goes wrong, vanish before the first alarm. The crew is a mix of skills. One woman once served as a maid in the Spanish court, another as a scribe for a Moroccan merchant, and a third can mimic any accent she hears within minutes. You spend the days leading up to the event rehearsing every detail, the layout of the estate, the shift changes of the guards, the names and habits of every household servant. There is humour even in preparation. The scribe jokes that her pen is deadlier than any dagger. The ex-maid claims she can eavesdrop through a stone wall if she presses her ear to the right spot. There's a tradition among the crew. Before any risky job, everyone must tie a red ribbon around their wrist. A charm for luck, and a reminder to look out for one another. Historians still argue whether such raids were truly acts of liberation or simply another shade of piracy. Some say that the Queen's reputation for kidnapping was exaggerated by her enemies, who wished to portray her as a villain. Others point to stories in which she used hostages as leverage to negotiate better conditions for women, prisoners, or local villages. The evidence is never clear, and you sense that the truth, as always, lies somewhere between self-interest and justice. The day of the festival arrives with a storm threatening on the horizon. Guests pour in by boat and carriage, dressed in silks and satins, laughter echoing through the garden as servants dart back and forth with trays of sweets and spiced wine. You blend easily with the staff, head bowed, eyes averted, just another face in the machinery of wealth. Yet every movement is measured, every word calculated. The governor himself is a tall man with a thick beard and a penchant for heavy rings. He glances at the staff with suspicion, but his attention is quickly stolen by his wealthy guests and the endless parade of performers. The daughter, by contrast, is easy to spot. She moves with practiced politeness but wears a constant look of distant worry. You catch her eye once in the corridor, and she offers a quick, curious smile as if aware that she too is playing a part she never auditioned for. As the night deepens, the real work begins. The scribe distracts a guard with a question about a missing ledger. The ex-maid slips into the kitchens to deliver a coded message to the rest of the crew. There's an odd tradition at such gatherings. When the musicians play a particular tune, one known to everyone who has ever worked in a great house, the kitchen staff is permitted to dance just for a minute in the courtyard. You watch as the code is signalled and every servant moves in a slow, practiced spiral through the garden, passing whispered messages and keys as they go. No one notices, or perhaps no one wants to break the illusion of perfect order. Historians still debate whether such elaborate signals were truly used, or whether this is just the romantic embroidery of later storytellers. But you can see, in the glint of the red ribbons, the silent nods, the shifting of trays and jugs, how easily a well-rehearsed crew can operate right under the noses of the powerful. The moment arrives just after midnight. You slip through a door left unlatched by your allies, into the dim hush of the governor's study. There, the daughter waits, eyes wide but steady. She greets you not with fear, but with the practiced poise of someone who has been waiting her whole life for a change in fortune. "Are you here to rescue or ransom me?" she asks, her voice soft but tinged with hope. You answer with a wry smile. Tonight, you get to choose which. She hesitates, then nods, and follows you through a maze of hidden passages. Corridors built, perhaps, by earlier generations of exiles and rebels. The route twists and turns, emerging at last in the darkness behind the stables, where a waiting boat is hidden among the reeds. As you row toward the safety of the pirate fleet, the daughter laughs for the first time that night, a free, fierce sound that carries back to the shore. At dawn, the estate is in chaos. The governor rages, his guards searching every corner, but by then the pirate ship is already slipping away. The crew celebrates quietly. No wild feasts, just shared bread and strong tea on the deck as the sun breaks through the storm clouds. The daughter sits among you, her dress still spattered with rain and mud, but her smile unclouded. She asks questions about navigation, about the lives of women on the sea, and you sense she's already imagining her own escape from the narrow roles she has known. There's a tradition on the pirate ship. Any newcomer must tell a story at the first dawn. The governor's daughter, after a moment's thought, shares a tale of how she once rescued a stray cat from her father's hunting dogs. A small rebellion, but a real one. The crew listens with approval. All rebels start small, says the ex-maid, but they never stop growing. You notice too the peculiar dynamics that shape the ship's life. The captain insists on a vote for every major decision. The cook, notorious for her fiery temper, is given the first taste of every meal, a mark of trust and a reward for loyalty. At sunset, the crew gathers to sing old songs, half in jest, half in memory of those who sailed before. Each voice adds a layer to the story of the ship, and even the shyest new arrival is invited to join in. You see too the darker side of the life you now share. There are stories of betrayals and lost friends, of raids that went wrong and left entire villages mourning. There's an old custom, half joke, half ritual, that after any failed venture the captain must sweep the deck herself, to clear away the bad luck. You watch as the pirate queen herself wields the broom with a kind of wry dignity, laughter rippling through the crew as the mood lightens. That night, as the ship glides silently between islands, you hear the governor's daughter whisper to the sea. "Let them think I was stolen," she says. "I know I have chosen my own way." Her words are a kind of oath, joining her to the long line of women who have used piracy not just to escape, but to transform their lives. In the dark, the pirate queen nods her approval. The next day brings news. The governor is desperate to recover his daughter. He offers a ransom, but the queen counters with demands of her own. A promise of safe passage for local fisherfolk, an end to a hated tax, the release of 2 imprisoned healers. Negotiations go on for days, carried out through coded messages and trusted intermediaries. In the end, the governor gives in to most of the queen's terms. His daughter, when finally sent ashore, is dressed as a common sailor, and the townspeople watching from the docks cannot help but smile at the sight. There's a strange pride among the crew. They know the risk was high, but the reward was greater, not just in gold, but in the shifting of power. The Pirate Queen marks the occasion by adding a new rule to the ship's code. No woman shall ever be traded for peace, but every woman may choose her own fate. It's a small addition, but its meaning runs deep. You reflect on all you've witnessed. What began as a mission of profit has become something more. A rebellion that remakes its participants, a fellowship that grows stronger in adversity. You remember the old tales of Sayyid al-Hurra negotiating with sultans, of Jung Yisao turning rivals into allies, of the unnamed women who left their marks on every hidden shore. The legacy of the Pirate Queens, you realize, is not just in their daring, but in their insistence that no fate is final. That night, as the moon casts a silver path across the waves, you gather with the crew around a lantern. The governor's daughter, now dressed in borrowed sailor's clothes, raises her cup in a toast. To freedom, she says. And all around, voices echo the word, softly, fiercely, as if naming the one treasure that can never be stolen. Sea air brings a sharpness to the senses, and with it comes the realization that in the pirate world, the greatest threats do not always come from the open horizon. Sometimes, the storm brews below deck, among trusted hands and quiet voices. After the governor's daughter returns to shore, and the fleet celebrates its clever triumph, a new kind of danger begins to ripple through the ships, one made not of cannonballs or royal decrees, but of whispered rumours and slow, creeping doubts. You're up late listening to the soft thud of ropes and the faint clang of pots in the galley, When you first hear the tale, someone has been trading secrets to a foreign captain, slipping information about the fleet's routes and hiding places in exchange for a pouch of gold. The rumour spreads with the speed of fire in dry brush, stoking old suspicions and forging new alliances in the shadows. You know, instinctively, that this is how pirate sisterhoods are truly tested. Not in battle, but in the struggle to root out treachery before it splits the hull. Sayyida al-Hura, always the calm at the centre of the swirl, senses the tension immediately. She calls a quiet meeting with her closest circle. No torches, just moonlight, a jug of sour wine, and the cold certainty that something precious is at risk. Each woman is given a chance to speak, to defend herself or accuse another, but the air is thick with caution. This is the downside of trust. When you rely on loyalty, a single betrayal can poison the well. Historians still argue whether these episodes of mutiny and espionage were common, or whether chroniclers simply magnified them to satisfy the world's hunger for tales of pirate intrigue. Some believe fleets held together by iron discipline alone were most vulnerable to rupture. Others claim it was the ships with the closest knit crews that fell hardest when trust broke. The truth, as always, lies tangled between. A sense of unease creeps through the ship. Small things go missing: extra food, a roll of good sailcloth, a jewelled hairpin. Each incident is trivial by itself, but together they form a pattern that cannot be ignored. Old jokes are told less freely, and eyes that once sparkled with laughter now dart nervously when 2 or 3 gather at the rail. Sayyida understands the delicate balance of fear and camaraderie. Rather than clamp down, she calls for transparency. At dawn, all the crews are summoned to the larger ship. The pirate queen stands on a barrel, her voice steady, her face set. A sisterhood endures only when the air is clear. Speak what you know, and let no rumour take root unchallenged. One by one, the sailors come forward, some with complaints, some with confessions, some with nothing more than a shrug. There's relief in the openness, but not everyone is satisfied. Trust, once questioned, is slow to return. That night, as the moon rises, you overhear a heated conversation near the stern. 2 former friends accuse each other of betrayal, voices rising until Sayyida herself steps between them. She listens patiently, then proposes a test. Each will guard the same chest for a full night, neither allowed to leave, the chest sealed with 3 locks. By morning, the one who cannot bear the pressure will reveal herself. It is a curious ritual, half practical, half psychological, and by sunrise the truth emerges, not through confession, but through the fidgeting and anxious glances of the guilty party. She's sent to another ship for a period of reflection, a punishment less about banishment than about restoring the bonds of trust. Historians debate the forms that pirate justice took. Was exile always the answer, or did more creative punishments serve the cause of harmony better? There are tales of the Snake's Watch, where the accused must sit in the crow's nest for a day, exposed to sun and wind, alone with their thoughts. In other fleets, those found guilty of spreading lies were made to serve a week in silence, forbidden from speaking to any crew. The purpose was never just discipline, but repair. During this time, you notice small acts of kindness returning. A mug of strong coffee left outside a tired watchman's cabin, an old scarf mended and pressed into the hands of a new recruit, the cook quietly doubling portions for those who seem anxious. Pirate communities, you realise, survive not just through codes and threats, but through the daily weaving and reweaving of small bonds, a web too dense for a single cut to unravel entirely, yet the threat of treachery lingers. One morning, a spyglass is found hidden among the laundry, a sure sign that someone has been watching for more than laundry stains. The Queen handles the incident with characteristic wit. She calls a meeting of all the fleet's lookouts and hands the spyglass around, inviting each to see what trouble really looks like. The laughter breaks the tension, and for a time, suspicion gives way to shared amusement. Still, the lesson is clear. Trust must be earned anew each day. The mood shifts again when a small merchant ship is spotted on the horizon, flying the flag of a rival pirate crew. Some of Sayyida's advisors argue for an immediate attack, Others caution patience. The Queen, after consulting her most trusted lieutenants, opts for a more subtle approach. She orders a decoy ship sent out under a false flag, its crew instructed to make contact and report back with news of any plot. The decoy crew returns with a tale of double dealing. A captain in the rival fleet has been sowing discord, hoping to draw defectors from Sayyida's ranks. The Pirate Queen, not above using a little treachery herself, sends back a gift, a basket of sweet oranges laced with a tiny slip of paper that reads, "We know your game." There's a strange comfort in the gamesmanship of it all. Among pirates, deceit is both an occupational hazard and a source of pride. A dance played by those who know the risks but refuse to give up the possibility of surprise. You hear stories at night of legendary betrayals, of a woman who lured a Spanish captain into a trap by pretending to defect, or of the time Sayyida herself staged her own kidnapping to flush out a traitor among her lieutenants. The facts may be impossible to verify, but the point is clear. Survival on the hidden seas depends as much on reading intentions as on reading charts. Historians still debate the line between loyalty and self-preservation. Did pirate queens reward cunning above all, or did they prefer the slow, steady trust built over years? The evidence is, as always, mixed. Some of Sayyida's closest confidants were former rivals, won over by her ability to forgive without ever truly forgetting. Others were lifelong friends whose loyalty never wavered. The ship's cat, meanwhile, remains firmly on the side of whoever is most likely to feed her. You're drawn into this world of shadows and games. One evening, a quiet woman named Layla, known for her sharp wit and quicker knife, confides in you that she suspects one of the new recruits. Too quiet, she says, and always watching. Never jokes, never drinks, never bets. Together you devise a simple test. Offer her a chance to join a late-night game of dice, a tradition that almost always ends in laughter and spilled tea. When the newcomer refuses, claiming she must prepare her hammock for storms, Layla's suspicions deepen. The next day, a fake message is sent, warning of a meeting in the far cove. The newcomer is caught trying to sneak out, a hastily scribbled map in her hand. The punishment is debated by the crew. Some demand exile, others a chance for redemption. Sayyida listens to both sides, then rules. The woman will serve under Layla for a month, watched, but not shamed. Her pay halved, her duties doubled. If she tries to flee again, there will be no second chance. The lesson is clear. Justice is firm, but never cruel, and mercy can often bind more strongly than fear. The Snake's Watch is used again for another offence. A seasoned sailor found spreading rumours of mutiny after losing a gambling match. As the days pass, you see how quickly the mood can shift from suspicion to solidarity. Each evening, crew members climb up to the crow's nest to bring food and news, slowly drawing the offender back into the fold. Through it all, you notice Sayyida al-Hurra's calm presence. She never raises her voice, never shows anger, but she is everywhere, repairing sails, mending disputes, listening more than speaking. Her authority comes not just from fear, but from her refusal to let suspicion fester. In the end, she tells you one night, we all answer to the sea. Betray her, and she will remember. But if you forgive, sometimes she forgives you too. There's humour, even now. At one supper, a sailor tells a story of the time she disguised herself as a Spanish monk to escape a blockade, only to be recognised by the monastery's cook who demanded a share of the loot. Next time I'll bring pastries, she promises, and laughter ripples through the mess. Historians still puzzle over the secret to pirate unity. Was it the threat of force, the lure of shared treasure, or the promise of belonging? As the moon rises high, you suspect it's all three, and something more. The knowledge that in this world you're only ever as strong as the trust you rebuild, again and again, every time the spyglass changes hands. One morning a new rainbow arcs across the sea, and with it comes a feeling of renewal. The rumours have faded, the crew works together again, and the next raid is planned not with dread, but with anticipation. The lesson is clear, and as you watch the ship sail forward under brightening skies, you realise the greatest danger may always be the spyglass and the snake, but the greatest strength is the will to trust, even when you have every reason not to. The salt air is sharp and the water glitters beneath a new sun as the pirate fleet sets sail again, stronger and more tightly knit than before. Suspicion has faded, replaced by a sense of earned camaraderie, a lesson hammered home by risk and reconciliation alike. With the governor's daughter's escape fading into local legend and the spyglass incident resolved, the ships now move as one, a scattered but united flock of seabirds, ready to dart, swoop and vanish as one body at a moment's notice. But the hidden seas are never still for long. On the horizon, a new opportunity rises, one that promises riches, but also tests the very heart of pirate kinship. A merchant convoy, fat with gold, guarded by alliances as fragile as glass. The convoy comes into view over 2 days, 6 heavy-laden ships escorted by a pair of swift war galleys. They travel under the banners of 2 powerful merchant houses, each with a reputation for cunning and ruthlessness. There's a sense, even before a single move is made, that this won't be a simple raid. Sayyida al-Hurra calls her council on the flagship's deck, and for the first time, you witness a strategy session where every decision feels like a roll of loaded dice. Some captains argue for a direct attack, overwhelm the escorts, take the lead ship, and scatter before reinforcements can arrive. Others warn that the merchant houses may have paid informants of their own, and that a failed raid could bring the wrath of foreign navies down upon every safe harbour the pirates possess. The debate is lively, peppered with sarcasm, half serious threats, and more than one exaggerated tale of the time I outsailed 3 war galleys in a row. One grizzled boatswain suggests flooding the sea with decoy lanterns to confuse the escorts. Another captain claims she can bribe a lookout on the lead merchantman, provided she can borrow the Queen's signet ring for a few hours. There's a custom among the fleet before any high-risk raid. The youngest crew member on each ship is invited to make a toast with seawater and rum, wishing the fleet speed and the enemy a touch of forgetfulness. You watch as shy girls and bold boys alike stand tall on crates and barrels, reciting rhymes learned from older pirates. Some are sweet, some hilariously dark, but all end with the same refrain. May the wind be at our backs, and may our friends forgive our mistakes. Sayyida listens to all the arguments before making her decision. She chooses the path of misdirection and diplomacy, combining a feigned retreat with clandestine negotiations. A message is sent, via a trusted go-between, to the captains of the merchant convoy, offering escort and protection in exchange for a share of the profits and the promise of safe passage through pirate waters. Historians still debate how often such deals were struck, and whether they were honoured or merely used as stalling tactics for a better timed ambush. The line between pirate and privateer is, after all, thinner than a knife's edge. The reply from the convoy is cautious but not dismissive. The merchant houses know the cost of conflict at sea, and their captains, though proud, are not above hedging their bets with a little insurance. Sayyida's envoy returns with a counteroffer, a smaller share of profits, plus the names of several rival traders in exchange for the Queen's word that no harm will come to the ships. There's a joke among the pirates that the real treasure isn't gold or silk, but information, gossip, secrets, grudges held by the right people in the right places. The Queen knows this too well. She accepts the convoy's offer, but also lays plans for a double cross should the merchants try to cheat her. The night before the convoy is set to enter pirate-controlled waters, Sayyida gathers her most trusted allies for a final strategy session. You're invited to observe. The meeting is held in a low-lit cabin, maps spread across the table, every inch marked with coded symbols. Trust, but tie your own knots, Sayyida says, echoing an old proverb. She divides her fleet. Some ships will shadow the convoy, others will disappear into the mist, waiting for a signal to appear if the deal sours. Scouts dispatched to intercept any Royal Navy ships lurking in the distance, and one fast boat crewed by the fleet's best swimmers is sent to slip underwater and disable the rudder of the most heavily armed escort, just in case. The next day, the pirate ships approach the convoy, sails trimmed to look less menacing. Greetings are exchanged by signal flags. Barrels of salted fish and water are traded for fresh fruit and news. The merchant captains, wary but eager to keep the peace, treat the pirates with a brisk courtesy reserved for useful enemies. Saida herself boards the lead merchantman for a face-to-face parley. You watch as she greets the merchant leaders with a warmth that belies her reputation, offering spiced tea and a game of chess on the quarterdeck. The parley is not without its quirks. One of the merchant captains insists on a test of honesty. Each party must provide a small sample of their own stores for a shared supper. The pirate's cook produces a surprisingly elegant meal from salted goat and wild greens. The merchant's chef offers a delicacy of honey-soaked almonds and preserved quince. A light-hearted argument ensues over whose recipe is oldest, and Saida, grinning, awards the win to whichever chef can tell the most outrageous story about their ingredients. The pirates win handily with a tale of ghost peppers, allegedly stolen from a haunted convent. The evening brings a sense of uneasy camaraderie. Crews mingle along the decks, sharing songs, boasts, and quietly trading trinkets beneath the officers' gaze. There's a moment when it seems, just for a heartbeat, that the whole world is nothing but wind and water and laughter, a floating market where even enemies become friends, if only for a night. But the next morning, the wind shifts. Scouts return with word that a royal warship has been sighted, trailing the convoy by a few hours. The merchants panic. Some demand that the pirates attack, others urge an immediate retreat. Saida, keeping her composure, signals her ships to scatter, maintaining the illusion of neutrality while secretly dispatching her fastest vessels to lure the warship away. It is a masterclass in deception. The royal ship, fooled by false signals and decoy sails, chases the pirate flotilla into the shallows, where hidden sandbars and reefs threaten to dash the hull to splinters. The pirates, light and maneuverable, slip away, while the warship founders for hours before finding its bearings again. In the confusion, the pirates escort the convoy through the safest passage, extracting a final toll for their trouble. The merchants, grudgingly grateful, offer up 2 chests of silver, which are distributed among the fleet with much ceremony. There's a tradition for such occasions. The youngest sailor on each ship is gifted a single silver coin to remember the value of peace when it's easy to choose war. You see how the lesson is taken to heart, how the coins are kept, polished, and sometimes passed down to the next generation of sea daughters and sons. The aftermath is one of those rare, golden moments of satisfaction. The pirates have gained both wealth and intelligence, the merchants, safe passage, and the means to boast of their clever negotiation. The warship, meanwhile, is left to brood in the wake of its own confusion. Historians will argue, as they always do, about the real lesson of such encounters. Did piracy and commerce blend together on these hidden seas, or were they always in opposition, locked in an endless game of trust and betrayal? You suspect the answer is as shifting as the wind, and as enduring as the hunger for freedom that brought all these ships together in the first place. That night, as the fleet anchors in a quiet bay, a celebration erupts. Lanterns are strung from mast to mast, and the decks become dance floors. The cook reprises her ghost pepper story to great applause, and the young sailors who made the peace toast are given pride of place at the captain's table. Saida herself allows a rare moment of relaxation, trading riddles and listening as the older sailors recount the wildest nights of their youth. Before sleep takes you, the Queen sits with you at the stern, her gaze on the moonlit water. "The world believes pirates only take," she says quietly, "but sometimes what we give, protection, peace, a little honest laughter, is worth more than all the gold in the world." She smiles, a tired but genuine expression, and for a moment you see not the pirate queen, but the girl who once fled across the sea, searching for a place to belong. As the ships drift on the tide, you realize that the greatest riches are not in the holds below, but in the stories passed hand to hand, the alliances built and broken, the moments when enemy and friend become almost the same thing beneath the open, forgiving sky. As the light lengthens on the hidden sea, the pirate fleet rides the swells with new confidence. The deal with the merchant convoy has become legend almost overnight, a tale retold with a little more bravado each time, as if even the ships themselves crave myth to buoy their battered timbers. Yet, as you move among the crews, sharing morning coffee on the quarterdeck, ducking through narrow passages slick with salt and old laughter, you begin to sense a subtle change in the air. The game is getting bigger, the stakes higher. Word spreads that a coalition of royal navies, rattled by the pirates' cleverness and alliances, is preparing to make a move. The ocean is shifting, and with it the lives of every pirate queen, every sister, every child who has ever found a home among outlaws. You wake before dawn to the sounds of hasty preparations. Sayida al-Hurra's fleet is not the only one feeling the pressure. Allied captains arrive from the east and south, bringing warnings of convoys rerouted and new taxes imposed on any port suspected of harbouring pirates. Even those merchants who once struck deals now keep a wary distance, fearful of retribution from kings and emperors whose patience has run thin. There's an old superstition. When the sea is too quiet and the gulls circle low, a reckoning is near. The morning sky is heavy, the sun a muted coin behind a veil of clouds. You find yourself summoned to a war council held below decks in the Queen's flagship, the air thick with sweat, oil and tension. This is not the usual gathering of clever schemers and storytellers. Here, every word is measured, every look carries the memory of hard-won trust. The council is a tapestry of voices, a Berber corsair in a jacket stitched with a dozen stolen flags, a Malabar helmswoman with storm-grey eyes and a laugh like thunder, a former Venetian merchant who, rumour has it, lost his ship to the pirates and then joined them, unable to bear a world without wind and risk. At the head sits Sayida, her gaze calm but piercing, her hands steady on the table, which is scarred by 100 old maps and a dozen newer ones, each more desperate, more crowded with enemy sails. The debate is heated. Some urge flight, suggesting the fleet scatter and hide until the storm passes. Others call for a preemptive strike on the royal blockades, gambling that boldness might earn them time or even a new treaty. If we run, we lose our power, says the Malabar helmswoman. If we fight and fail, we lose everything. The old Venetian suggests a third option. Lure the navies into a trap, feigning surrender at a forgotten island, only to strike when their guard is down. You realise as you watch the arguments flicker and spark, that this is what keeps the fleet alive, not just cunning or strength, but the willingness to question, to adapt, to listen for the one idea that might turn the tide. Historians still argue whether such councils were truly democratic or simply theatre for the rank and file. Some claim that pirate fleets operated as floating republics, with every voice heard before a decision was made. Others suggest that even the most egalitarian crews bowed to their queens in moments of crisis, trusting experience over process. Whatever the truth, you sense in this council a real mixture of both, the freedom to speak, but the expectation that someone, Sayida or another like her, will make the call when the debate has run its course. A plan emerges, as messy and multifaceted as the people who shape it. The fleet will split into three. One group will draw off the navy with a series of false raids, scattering decoy ships along the coast. Another will double back to rescue allies trapped in a besieged port. The core of the fleet, including Sayida herself, will slip through the islands at dawn, using secret routes mapped by generations of pirates to evade the net. There's humour, even here. Before breaking up, the Berber corsair pulls a battered coin from his pocket and tosses it onto the table. To luck, he says, and to the first one of us who finds a navy cook who can make bread fit for pirates. Laughter ripples through the group, a brief but necessary balm against what lies ahead. That night, preparations are frantic. Sails are patched, barrels lashed down, charts poured over by lantern light. Each ship has its own rituals. Some crews sing, some pray, others simply sharpen their blades and count out their share of the gold. The air hums with tension and anticipation, but also with a certain resolve. You sense it in every glance, every whispered word. No one wants to die, but no one will run from the fight either. Historians debate how often pirates truly faced annihilation, or whether the threat of royal retribution was just one more hazard of the trade. Letters from frightened governors and intercepted naval orders paint a picture of panic and fury ashore, but for the fleet at sea, it is simply another chapter, a familiar storm, this time with more thunder. The first blows fall at dawn. A pair of royal ships, their banners bright against the sky, attempt to trap a decoy crew at the mouth of a narrow bay. The pirates, prepared for just such a move, lure the enemy in, then set fire to decoy barrels filled with pitch. Smoke blinds the royal gunners, and the pirates slip away in the chaos, laughing as the enemy curses their devilish tricks. Farther south, another group of pirates ambushes a blockade force in the fog, stealing a supply ship and disappearing before the navy can regroup. You are with Saida's core fleet, threading through the maze of islands. At one critical pass you find a strange marker, an old mast stuck upright on a sandbar, draped with rags and a single brass lantern. The Queen explains, "My mother's signal. It means the safe channel is open, but only at dawn, and only if the sea is calm." You pass through just as the sky begins to lighten, the hull scraping but unharmed, every eye watching the water for submerged rocks. On the other side, relief is palpable, but the danger isn't gone. As the fleet regroups, news comes that the Allies at the besieged port are holding out barely. The plan is risky, but it's the only way. A small strike force will sneak in under cover of darkness, posing as fishers while the main fleet circles to draw off the blockaders. The strike team includes women from every Allied ship, expert swimmers, climbers, knife fighters, and more than one who can talk her way past any checkpoint. All the best pirates, Saida grins, have more than one costume. Historians still debate the accuracy of such cloak and dagger tactics. Some suggest they are romantic flourishes added by later storytellers. Others have found letters, ship logs, and even ballads that speak to the pirates' creativity in war. Regardless, the night raid works. The port's defenders are resupplied, and a clutch of imprisoned women, accused of harbouring rebels, are smuggled out under cover of a cargo of dried fish. By now, the coalition navy is furious. They launch a full-scale search, blockading every major harbour and sending patrols to every known pirate hideout. But the seas are full of hidden passages and forgotten coves, and the Queen's network of informants stretches from the palace kitchens to the humblest fishing boats. You watch as signals flare along the coast, a red flag here, a fire on a distant hill there, messages carried by pigeons and children alike. The pirates scatter, then converge, slipping through gaps in the net while the navy blunders in pursuit of ghosts. A fringe tradition emerges. On every ship, the crew weaves a small knot of red and gold thread into their hair or clothing, a symbol of solidarity and luck in battle. There's a running joke that the Queen's cat, a fierce tabby with a missing ear, is the real mastermind behind the fleet's survival, and every time the animal sneezes, the crew changes course. Amid all this chaos, the pirates still find moments of joy. There are midnight feasts in hidden bays, dances on moonlit decks, competitions to see who can tell the most outrageous lie about how they escaped the king's hangman. The pirates know that joy is a kind of rebellion too, a way to claim freedom even when surrounded. The weeks of running and fighting take their toll, ships are lost, friends go missing, the Queen herself is nearly captured once, slipping away only thanks to the quick thinking of a girl who sets fire to a storehouse, drawing the soldiers' attention. There are losses and grief and the weary ache of uncertainty, but the fleet endures. As the storm of royal fury finally abates, thanks in part to a harsh winter, in part to political distractions on land, the pirate fleet emerges from hiding. Their numbers are smaller, but their bond is stronger than ever. Saida, her hair streaked with new silver, gathers her crew for a dawn ceremony on the beach of an uncharted isle. There she pours a libation into the sand for the lost, and with a voice roughened by wind and memory, promises that as long as the sea remembers their names, none are truly gone. Historians may one day try to count the cost of these battles. Ships sunk, fortunes won and lost, treaties signed and broken. But what endures in your memory is not the numbers, but the moments of human strength. The girl's laugh amid gunfire, the clasp of a friend's hand on a cold night, the warmth of belonging even as the world tries to hunt you down. That evening, as the fleet prepares to slip away into legend once more, the Queen's cat curls up on the helm and someone starts a song about an endless summer and a sea that never truly gives up its rebels. The melody rises, simple and haunting, carrying the promise that as long as there are women with courage and wit, there will always be pirate queens somewhere on the hidden seas. You wake to the familiar creak and sway of the ship beneath you, the mingled scents of salt, tar and yesterday's bread drifting on the morning breeze. The pirate fleet is scattered once again across the endless blue, but this time the scattering is by choice, a tactical dispersal, each ship carrying part of the story, part of the loot, and a measure of the fleet's soul. Even in retreat there is resilience, a hard-won wisdom that only those who face down the world's wrath can carry. The royal navies have withdrawn for now, battered by weather and wits alike. Their flags vanish on the horizon, but the memory of their pursuit lingers in every nervous glance at the clouds and every joke made a shade too loud. The pirates know that safety is temporary, yet there's a new lightness in the air, a sense that survival itself is a kind of victory. Sayyida al-Hurra sits at the helm of her flagship, eyes fixed on the horizon. Her hair, caught by the breeze, glimmers with threads of silver, and the lines on her face are deeper, but somehow softer too. The crew trusts her more now than ever before. She leads not just with orders, but with quiet rituals, sharing out the last orange among her lieutenants, stopping to help patch a torn sail, listening to the small troubles of the newest deckhand as if they were matters of state. The strength of the Pirate Queen is not in her ferocity alone, but in her stubborn, relentless humanity. You find your place among the crew, learning not just to read the stars, but to read the moods and stories that swirl through the ship. Every night the pirates gather for supper, sharing what they have, a pot of beans, a wedge of cheese, a few sweet dates. Laughter comes more easily now, and so do the tales. There is comfort in the repetition of the old legends. The time the Queen tricked a Spanish galleon with painted sea monsters. The time a lookout mistook a flock of pelicans for the Sultan's navy and nearly started a mutiny of her own. There's a custom on Sayyida's ship that you've grown to love. After supper, the crew makes a circle on deck, passing around a battered old flute. Each person plays, or tries to play, a single note, weaving a patchwork melody of off-key chirps and surprising beauty. Even the most serious captains join in, and there's always laughter when someone tries to show off and manages only a squeak. No queen ever ruled who couldn't laugh at herself, Sayyida once quipped, to which her first mate added, or at least at the bosun's flute playing. Historians still debate the value of these rituals. Did they really hold the crews together, or were they simply ways to pass the long, hungry nights? You suspect the answer is both. Rituals are memory made tangible, a way to stitch the days together even when the wind and tides threaten to tear them apart. But beneath the warmth, new rumours stir. A letter arrives from a distant port. An old ally, now in need, begs for help against a corrupt governor squeezing the local women's guild for bribes. Sayyida reads the letter aloud, her voice steady but her jaw tight. The council gathers. No need for secrecy now, just shared purpose. Should they risk exposing themselves again so soon? Some say yes, others argue for caution. The debate is passionate but never divisive. It is the debate of equals bound by the knowledge that the sea gives and takes as it pleases. Sayyida chooses action. The fleet will answer the call, but with care and cunning, not with open force. The plan is to slip ashore at night, using a hidden inlet only the oldest among them remembers. The raiding party will be all women, blending in with the market crowds, sowing rumours, turning the governor's own men against him. It's not the sword that wins the day, Saida says. It's the whisper in the right ear at the right moment. Historians still argue whether pirate women really wielded such influence in port politics. Was it all secret deals and midnight meetings, or did they sometimes win by sheer visibility and bravado? Letters from the time, though rare, speak of sudden upsets. Governors replaced overnight, taxes mysteriously lifted. The odd official discovered too drunk to remember who bribed him. The real record, you sense, is etched in the changes left behind, not in the papers kept in dusty city halls. The landing is a study in stealth and subtlety. Dressed as market women, fishers and seamstresses, the pirates melt into the city's dawn. Their weapons are baskets of bright lemons, barrels of salt fish, and baskets of lace and cloth, items perfect for hiding messages, coins and, when needed, a small knife. The governor's mansion looms over the city, but its guards are distracted by rumours of a riot in the far quarter, a disturbance planted by the Queen's network. Within a day, the bribe system collapses, not through violence but through confusion. As merchants refuse to pay, officials start blaming one another, and the Women's Guild stages a market strike that empties the city's streets. There's a running joke among the pirates. The Queen never needs to draw her sword. Her shopping basket is deadlier. It's not far from the truth. The local women, inspired by their visitors, learn how to resist without ever raising their voices above a whisper. By the third day, the corrupt governor resigns, for health reasons, and a new, more sympathetic official is quietly installed. The raid's success is celebrated not with plunder, but with a feast of shared food and new friends. You see Saida smiling, for once truly at ease, surrounded by laughter and music. She dances with the local guild mistress, her steps slow and deliberate, the two women moving with the easy grace of those who know the value of partnership. Historians still debate the long-term effects of such interventions. Did pirate queens really change the course of city life? Or were they simply passing storms? Some say the stories are overblown, others point to records of sudden prosperity and unusual solidarity among women in former pirate haunts. What's certain is that the spirit of rebellion lingers long after the last ship vanishes from the bay. The fleet returns to sea with new supplies, new stories and new allies. Spirits are high, but Saida gathers her crew for a rare, sober address. Our lives are made of risks, she says, and sometimes the price is high. But remember, if you give the world nothing but fear, it will offer you nothing but chains. If you give it a little hope, sometimes you get to keep a little freedom. There's silence, then applause. Someone begins a song about lemons sharper than steel, and soon the entire deck is singing. The cat, true to her legend, leaps onto the helm, flicks her tail, and the ship's course veers a few degrees east, a sign the crew claims of good fortune ahead. You sleep that night with a sense of contentment, a rare thing on the pirate sea. In your dreams, you walk a moonlit market where every stall is run by a woman with a secret and a laugh like thunder, and the Queen herself pours you a cup of honeyed tea, her eyes twinkling above the rim. Dawn comes with new plans, new sails, and the endless promise of the horizon. The pirate queens, for all their scars and losses, are not done yet. As long as there is injustice to upend, as long as there is a cove for hiding and a tide for running, as long as there are stories to be told, the hidden seas will never be quiet, and neither will you. The horizon glows lavender and gold as your ship glides over calm water, the dawn unusually gentle after so many nights of storms. It feels like the world is holding its breath, as if even the wind has paused to listen for the next story to unfold. The fleet, slimmed by hardship and made fierce by survival, is scattered but not lost. Each ship a spark of defiance still dancing on the dark sea. Saida al-Hurra stands at the rail, the sea air playing in her hair, her eyes searching the line where sky meets water. The age of pirate queens is drawing toward its close, but you sense that what's left behind will echo far beyond these waves. The days grow quieter, repairs fill the mornings, sails patched, hulls scrubbed, bright banners washed in salt water and hung to dry like promises. The ship's cat snoozes in the sun, oblivious to history, while the women swap stories, laughter rising in bursts from the galley. There is a sense, not quite of peace, but of balance, a lull before whatever comes next. In the evening, Saida gathers her crew for one last tale. She stands with her hands wrapped around a mug of strong tea, her voice low and measured. "You all know the stories," she begins, "of the queens who came before, of ships lost and won, of fortunes made and spent. But do you know what's more precious than gold? The knowing, here," she taps her chest, "that you belong to something wild and free and greater than fear. You sit among them, the faces around you shadowed by lantern light, and listen as she weaves memories into the air. Some stories are new, small triumphs, silly misadventures, the way the cat once chased a rat up the rigging and nearly knocked the mainmast loose. Others are old, retold 100 times but always welcomed. The escape from Granada, the first raid off the Moroccan coast, the festival of red thread knots that kept hope alive during the long winter blockade. Historians still argue about how it all ended. Did the pirate queens vanish in a single, thunderous defeat? Or did they slip away one by one into the folds of legend and everyday life? Some say Saida al-Hurra was betrayed by a rival and imprisoned in her own palace. Others believe she bargained for a quiet retirement, living out her years as a respected matron in Tetouan, her past known only in whispers and in the glint of a certain look in her eye. There's no agreement, but the stories endure, kept alive by those who cherish a life lived on the knife edge of danger and freedom. One night a letter arrives, delivered by a fisherman whose wife once sailed with the fleet. It's from a woman in a distant city, written in a hand you don't recognise but signed with a familiar symbol, a tiny knot of red and gold. She writes of small victories, a governor deposed, a school for girls opened with the proceeds of a forgotten cache, a song sung at a festival that makes old men weep and young women laugh. "We're still here," she writes, "wherever there is need, wherever there is hope." The crew gathers to hear the letter read aloud. You see the pride on their faces, the tears in their eyes, the fierce joy that no defeat, no exile could ever take away. The cat, sensing the emotion, purrs in Saida's lap, and for a moment, the world feels utterly safe. There are debates, of course, about what comes next. Some want to settle, buy a tavern in a port city, live out their days telling tales to anyone who'll listen. Others dream of one last great voyage, a journey to lands even the most daring pirate has never seen. Saida listens to all of them, nodding, her smile equal parts amusement and admiration. "Every queen chooses her own ending," she says at last. "Just don't let anyone else write it for you." You notice how the stories themselves have become a kind of currency. At every port where the fleet touches land, people gather to hear what the pirate queens have seen, learned, and dared. Sometimes, a local girl will press a carve token into your palm, a sign of thanks or a secret request for advice. Sometimes a mother will bring her daughter to the quay, pointing at Saida's ship and whispering, "Remember, you too can steer your own fate." Historians and poets continue to debate the legacy. Did piracy simply replace one form of tyranny with another? Or did the hidden seas become, for a time, the freest place on earth for women to shape their own lives? No one agrees. But on these decks you see the answer etched in smiles, scars, and the easy way the crew moves together. Freedom is never perfect, but it is always worth the risk. On the last night at sea, the pirates hold a vigil for the lost. Lanterns are set adrift, each bearing a whispered wish or a secret hope. As they float away, you watch the points of light bobbing into the darkness carried by the same currents that once brought danger and deliverance alike. Saida, her voice barely above a whisper, says, "Let the world tell its stories. We will write our own." As dawn breaks, the ships point their bows toward new horizons. Some will vanish into legend, others will return, transformed to the lands of their birth, you too feel changed, salt in your blood, wildness in your heart, and the knowledge that the greatest treasure is the sisterhood you found in the shadows of the hidden seas. Now, as the lanterns fade and the sea quiets, you find yourself breathing more slowly, every muscle easing as if the world itself is letting go. The ship is still, rocking gently beneath you. Around you, voices murmur softer and softer, words blurring into the hush of water against wood. You hear laughter drifting up from memory, the kind that lingers long after the moment has passed. The salt breeze is gentle on your face, and even the cat has curled up, a warm weight beside you, purring a sleepy song. Let your mind drift backward over the journey, across cities of stone and labyrinths of tunnels, through wild monsoons and secret markets, beside women who risked everything for a life of their own choosing. Each memory is a gentle wave carrying you closer to shore. There are no more storms tonight, only the steady rhythm of water and the soft creak of the hull, each sound a promise that you are safe, that the story will still be here when you wake. If you listen closely, you can almost hear Sayida's voice in the dark. Rest easy, friend. The sea will hold your dreams. Let that comfort settle over you, warm and steady. Let your breath slow, your thoughts soften, your heart find a little peace. You are not alone. The stories have found you, and they'll keep you safe through the night. Sleep well, dreamer. Tomorrow will come with its own adventures. For now, drift away with the tide, wrapped in all the wild, brave histories that carried you here. You're exactly where you need to be. Sweet dream.